LLB MCL PhD from International Islamic University, Malaysia. Honorable the Dean of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Budi Agus Riswandi, SH MHum. Honorable the Vice Dean for Resources Management, Ibu Dr. Sri Hastuti Puspitasari, SH MH. Honorable Vice Dean for Religious, Student, and Alumni Affairs, Bapak Dr. Andes Agustrianta, MA, MH, PhD. Honorable the Head of Department of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Bapak Dr. Muhammad Arif Setiawan, SH MH. Honorable Secretary of Department of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Bapak Bagja Agung Prabowo, SH MHum, PhD. Honorable the Head of Undergraduate Study Program in Law, along with all of his staff. Honorable the Leader of Official Units and Department, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, the respective committee, the distinguished participant, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wa bihi nasta'in ala umurid dunya waddin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajmain amma ba'du. Let us thanks to Allah because of His mercy and blessings we can gather on this extraordinary morning. Also, let us offer our greetings to Nabiullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May peace be upon him and may we get his syafaat during the Yaumil Akhir. Amin Allahumma amin. And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the International Seminar, Immigration Policy Systems and Legal Security 2022. As a start of our opening ceremony, together we will listen to the recitation of the Holy Quran, which will be recited by Aftur Solehan, and the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ardh Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ardi wa ikhtilafil laili wan nahar واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. Inna fi khalqis samawati واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس فافسحوا يفسح الله لكم. وإذا قيل انشزوا فانشزوا يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات. والله بما تعملون خبير. والله بما تعملون خبير. صدق الله العظيم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Sadaqallahul Azim wa nahnu ala dhalika minasyahidin. Amin. And next, we will sing the Indonesian National Anthem, Indonesia Raya, and continued by Hymne UII. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our national anthem. and the audience is allowed to take the seat back. And now we move on to the speech segment. We will start the opening speech by the representative of Yongsan University and researcher of the Ministry of Education of Republic Korea and the National Research Foundation of South Korea, to Professor Park Ji-hyun. The time is yours.
Assalamualaikum. What do you feel? Okay, it is my great honor to be here, and it is a great pleasure of mine to meet you all here early in the morning, and especially the professors, a long time friend of mine. They are all changed, but still the same to me. And the students, double degree student Julio is also here. I'm really happy to see him again. You're all here to share the knowledge of a new generation, and all professors are here to share the knowledge together, so we can improve each other to lead the way of the international community. Thank you for coming at the early hour, and I really appreciate to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
And thank you, Professor, for the speech. And next, opening speech by the Vice Dean of Religious, Student, and Alumni Affairs, Bapak Dr. Andes Agustrianta, MA, MH, PhD. And the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajmain. Good morning, everybody here. It is a great honor for me to be given opportunity to stand up here on behalf of the Faculty of Law Universitas Islam Indonesia. Since our deans, Professor Budi Agus Riswandi, will deliver keynote speech, so he asked me to deliver opening speech here on behalf of the Faculty of Law. And first of all, I would like to give the very warm welcome to our very distinguished guest, Professor Park Ji-hyun from Yongsan University, Korea, for her first visit after pandemic shutdown for 2 years, I think. So welcome to our new campus here, which is quite far from the city, but I think much more beautiful compared to our old campus here. And also our distinguished speakers, first Professor Budi Agus Riswandi as the keynote speaker in this morning, and also our speakers, Master Christopher M. Kessen, JD LLM. We call it Pak Chris because it is not foreign for us, but currently, he going to deliver the speech from Seattle, America. Though usually he is around us here, but in this particular moment, he back to his country and will deliver speech from America. So it will add our atmosphere as the truly international conference. Because though Pak Chris is around us here, but this morning he will deliver the paper from Central America. Also, our distinguished speaker, Ibu Rina Sahriani, as a MCL PhD from International University Batam. Welcome to this conference, Ibu Rina Sahriani. It is our grateful from us to have you here among our speakers. And this is also our colleague from Malaysia. Welcome, Associate Professor Sony Yulhuda, PhD, for your availability to be a speaker also in this international conference. We are very happy with the extension of the collaboration with Islamic University, International Islamic University of Malaysia, for this participation in this conference. Last but not least, we have also Pak Dodi Setiawan, PhD, here for hosting this conference. In particular to the conference this morning, we would like to extend our deep gratitude for Professor Park Ji-hyun on behalf of the Yongsan University Korea for not only coming here to insist and extend the collaboration which already run for at least 8 years, but also in this particular moment, this conference is made possible by the grant given by the Minister of Education of South Korea and also from the Research Foundation of South Korea. So thank you very much, Prof. Park Ji-hyun, for this grant for us. And also our respected guests here and also the participant of this seminar. Though this is conducted in hybrid, by means that some of the participants coming here, but still there are many, the rest, join this conference through the internet. We do hope that this kind of hybrid model will not reduce our seriousness and our willingness to dig more deeper knowledge in this particular topic. As the topic has been stated there, immigration policy system and legal security. And lastly, on behalf of the Faculty of Law and on the behalf of the committee of this conference, we do apologize for any shortcomings because the time limit and also the transition condition which made us not easy as the normal condition. So we do apologize for all the shortcomings that may be come or rise in this conference. Thank you very much for the appreciation and also the attention. So please enjoy this seminar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Bapak, for the speech. And the last is a keynote speech by the Dean of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, to Professor Dr. Budi Agus Riswandi, SHM, whom the time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, all of speaker and participant. Special thanks to Professor Park from Yongsan University. I will appreciate to this collaboration. And again, thank you very much. Today, I will presentation about the future of Indonesian cyber law. So please, I will read my paper. The structure of my paper, there are 4 parts. The first one about introduction, and the second one, cyber law condition in Indonesia. And the third one, the future of Indonesian cyber law, and the last one about conclusion. Let's do the introduction. The development of internet technology that bring negative access toward Indonesian people's life is increasing. Various cases arise with several variants. On the other hand, the law that expected to prevent or minimize the arising of new cases is useless because there are a lot of limitations, such as the simplicity of the norm in the legislation, minimal technological literacy, and law enforcers' personalism related to the use of technology. And then community culture toward hard use of information technology is also not enough. And cyber law condition in Indonesia. Indonesia law itself in response to negative access, there are two legal models applied. The one model, conventional law, and the second model, new law that are focused on cyber law. Conventional law is law that has been enforced all this time, characterized by validity of law based on territorial system. For example, in law number I of 1999 on consumer protection, or law number 28 of 2014 on copyright and several other legislation. While new law is law that are created nowadays, characterized by the existence of law based on extraterritorial system. For example, in law number 11 of 2008, Junto law number 19 of 2016 on electronic information and transaction, along with several enforcement provision of the legislation itself. Okay, we wait our professor. Welcome, Professor Jawahir. Okay. Thank you. Come to our conference. Okay, we continue. In its development, the legal model have been developed and implemented in Indonesia simultaneously. Nevertheless, in the last few years, there is one legal issue related to cyber law that become a serious concern regarding the protection of personal data. There are three things that push the protection of personal data issue become cyber law legal issue nowadays in Indonesia, namely the first one, increasing use of internet technology for the communication, interaction, and transaction purposes in the Indonesian community, especially when the COVID-19 pandemic happening in Indonesia, where the personal data user were massive. The second one, the increasing cases of personal data violation, both in public and private service. In public service, such as case of personal data links from Peduli Lindungi service, while in the private service, such as the sale of 1.2 million Binika.com data user with price tag $1 and $200 or around 17.8 million rupiahs on May 2020. And the third one, there are demands from other countries against Indonesians' effort to protect personal data when conducting international relations or international business transaction. Based on the situation and condition, Indonesian attempt to draft a personal data protection law or known as draft PDF law. The PDF law is a government initiative that became priority to be discussed in 2009 based on legislative or DPR-RE decree number 19/DPR-RE/1/2018 until 2019 concerning the 2019 Priority Law National Legislation Program and its amendment of 2015 and 2019 National Legislation Law Program. The status of draft PDF law from October 2009 has completed the process of harmonization and finalization between ministry or institution. Draft PDF law until now has not yet been ratified due to difference of opinion between government and legislative regarding the existence of the Personal Data Protection Commission. The government does not want a new institution to be created, but the tasks of the commission are united with the tasks of Ministry of Communication and Information of Republic Indonesia, while legislative or DPR want to create new independent institution. Ladies and gentlemen, we talk about the future of Indonesian cyber law. When looking at the current reality, the draft of legislation related to cyber law, such as the Personal Data Protection Law, is not enough to establish a good cyber law system in Indonesia. To be able to build a good cyber law system in the future, there are at least three things to be prepared simultaneously, namely, the first one, legal substance. Legal substance related to the applicability of the good and comprehensive legislation about cyber law that is urgently needed now. Certainly, the legislation must bring dimension of certainty, benefit, and justice of the law. In the reality, there are some other legislation that are needed to be renewed or preparing the new legislation so it can reach out any kinds of legal issue related with the use of internet technology in Indonesia. The need of renewal several legislation is a logic consequence from the development and advancement of internet technology and the existence of special need of characteristic adoption, the use of internet technology that are different with the reality in the real world, while the preparation of three new legislation is because there is a legal vacuum in the current legislation. Several new legislation is now being worked on, such as cybersecurity and resilience law or telematica convergency law. And the second one, legal structure. Legal structure regarding credible institution and human resources of professional law enforcer is become another requirement so the cyber law system can be effectively implemented. In Indonesia itself, the existence of legal institutions that related to be the use of internet technology is not properly available and credible. For example, personal data handling is still handled by Ministry of Communication and Information of Republic of Indonesia. This would be better to make a credible institution and it handled by an independent agency or commission and had a legal basis in the legislation. In the other hand, regarding the availability of human resources of law enforcers that have an awareness and literacy level toward the user of internet technology still very limited. Even though when it comes to human resources of law enforcement in cyber law can be personal, professional. So that knowledge and skill in legal field is not enough, but the human resources of law enforcers are needing to upgrade the knowledge and skill in the internet technology field. And the last one about the future of Indonesian cyber law is a legal culture. Legal culture is another method that can support the good implementation of cyber law system in Indonesia. However, in the practices, Indonesia citizens still lack internet technology awareness and literacy. This has resulted in many violations of law relating to the use of internet technology. For example, defamation has become one of the trends in the use of internet technology. It may be one of the causes because people didn't understand which is okay and which is one isn't okay to be done in terms of the use of internet technology. If this legal culture matter can be will done consistently of law enforcement and intensive education, then cyber law system will surely be able to implement it quickly. The conclusion, my presentation, cyber law system in Indonesia basically is an inevitability. But in order the future of cyber law system will build, then it will be better to focus the development on three things, namely legal substance, legal structure, and legal culture. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor, for the speech and presentation. And now we have a photo session for the speakers and also the head of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Thank you for all the speakers and headquarters of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. And now, before we move to the main event, we are pleased to announce you our distinguished speaker. There are our first speaker is Professor Park Ji-hyun from Yongsan University, South Korea. And the second speaker is Mr. Christopher MKsen JDLLM from Universitas Islam Indonesia. The third speaker is Ms. Rina Syahriani Syahrullah, SH MCL PhD from Universitas Internasional Batam. And the last speaker is Associate Professor Soni Zulhuda, LLB MCL PhD from International Islamic University, Malaysia. For this session, our discussion will be guided by our moderator, the Secretary of International Undergraduate Program in Law, Mr. Dodi Setiawan, SH MH LLM PhD. Mr. Dodi is a senior lecturer in Department of Law, International Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia since 2012. He holds his degree in law from Universitas Islam Indonesia and continued with Master of Law from the same university in 2008. And he gets his second master degree of law from the University of Deferred in 2015. And continued with doctoral degree from Geza Martin Doctoral of School of Legal Studies, University of Deferred with summa cum laude predicate. To our moderator, Mr. Dodi, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. All praise to the Almighty God, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, that this morning we have a very wonderful conference and international seminar. And this is the first international seminar established offline in our brand new building, the Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. And welcome to our new building and great building and beautiful building of the Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Give applause to us. Yeah. The Honorable, the Dean of the Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Professor Dr. Budi Agus Riswandi, the Honorable, the Vice Dean of Human Resource, Associate Professor Dr. Sri Hastuti Puspitasari, and then Vice Dean of Religious, Alumni, and Student Affairs, Associate Professor Dr. Agus Triaga, PhD, and also the Head of the Department of Law, Mr. Associate Professor Bagia Agung Prabowo, SH PhD, and also our well-known professor in international law, Professor Jawahir Tantowi. Thank you so much for coming. Though he has problem with his feet, and he is coming to this wonderful building. Thank you, Prof, for coming. And also our distinguished guests coming from far away from South Korea, from Yongsan University. Thank you very much, Professor Ji-hyun Park, for coming to our wonderful place and wonderful building, and also for this international seminar. Annyeonghaseyo. Ya. Saya berusaha tadi pagi dandannya lama biar kayak artis Korea ini. Iya, sengaja ini. Jadi kalian harus semangat itu kan. Nanti di luar sudah ada itu yang cowok-cowok Korea mau tampil kayaknya itu. Pakai baju biru kayaknya itu, udah siap-siap itu di belakang. Okay, so thank you very much for coming. And today we will have an international seminar with the topic of immigration systems and its political security. And we will have a comparative explanation from our experts from the United States. We have Associate Professor Christopher Casson. And also we have also from Malaysia, I think he's coming. Mas bisa di pinpoint our speaker kita from Malaysia. Terima kasih Pak Soni. Yeah, and also we also have speaker from Universitas Internasional Batam. She is still in Batam, but she has a good cooperation, and she is invited by Professor Park to come as well. And also we have Who is the other else? I think Prof. Sony, Prof. Chris, and also Prof. Rina. So we already have everything here. So without further ado, I would like to start this international seminar. But before that, let me explain about their summary. So basically, I have so many pages in my table right now because this is their CV and this is a lot of pages to read. But I have the obligation as moderator to read. So the first speaker will be from South Korea, and thank you very much for Professor Ji-Hyun Park for coming. And she is graduated from the law faculty at Yonsei University for the LLD program in 2005, University of Pennsylvania Law School for LLM in 1998, George Washington University Law Institute for Pre-Law in 1995, and Yonsei University for Bachelor of Law in 1994. Professor Ji-Hyun Park, LLD, worked as a legal consultant at Chungju Customs Office in Busan, Korea, and attorney at Moon and Shim Law offices in Los Angeles, California, United States. She works as a professor in the Department of Law at Yongsan University from 2007 to the present day. Her current positions are the Director of Global Center, Director of Korean Language Center, Director of Kim Sejong Institute in Bandung. After this ceremony, she is going to Bandung, and member of Public Officer Examiner, member of Diplomat Officer Examiner, committee member of Busan Metropolitan City, and committee member of Yongsan City. She has licenses from the New York State Attorney, Korean language teacher, and holds 2 patents. So this is very great to have professor with 2 patents. Professor Ji-Hyun Park, LLD, has done many types of research in the field of law, such as international law in general, international economics, WTO, environment, human rights, international humanitarian, and nuclear. Professor Ji-Hyun Park has published several books, such as International Cases and Materials as co-author, Samyongsa in 2010, EU Environmental Law, Bak Yongsa in 2016, and Thinking and Expression, Tai Haksa. I'm sorry, my Korean is not good at this. And she also has published more than 60 articles. Now she works as one of the reviewers of International Red Cross and Red Crescent Journal, International Review of the Red Cross. Please welcome Associate Professor, Professor Ji-Hyun Park, LLD. Please come forward. Yeah, you can have a seat. Maybe you can sit down here or there, up to you.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe you can just sit down first, and I will explain the other speakers' summary. Yeah. Okay. So the other second speaker will be from the United States. Can I say hi to you, Chris? Hello. Mas, bisa di unmute? Are you still there? Okay. Are you still in California or in Seattle?
In Seattle now.
Oh, in Seattle. Okay. Unfortunately, we have Starbucks here. Starbucks is from Seattle, so you should be very lucky to unlucky to have international seminar offline there. Okay. So Christopher Casson, GD LLM. He received LLM degree in International Dispute Resolution in 2019. And also Doctor of Jurisprudence in 1998 from Seattle, University of Washington School of Law, Seattle, and Bachelor of Arts in English and Business in 1994 from Washington State University. Presently, he got so many experience. First, currently he is appointed as senior lecturer from the Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Yogyakarta, and senior consultant between 2014 to 2017 in PT Blue Visions Management, Jakarta, and also the Director of Studies 2013 to 2014 from IONS International Schools, and also between 2010 to 2013 International Transactions Consultant in Seoul, South Korea. And also, yeah, he speaks Korean very well. He's my friend, so I know everything about him. And he published so many publications. And recently, he published Fighting Corruption Through the Federal System, Independence as the Key of Corruption Eradication, the Journal of Environmental and Technology of Law in 2020. And he also published some journals in 2018, 2019, and also one of them is from Yearbook of ASEAN Law from South Korea. So thank you for coming, Chris. Yeah. Do you have coffee with you? If not, you can go to Starbucks near your place, because Starbucks is coming from Seattle. So I'm sure that you have a very nice taste of coffee from Seattle. And our first speaker will be Associate Professor Dr. Sony Zulhuda. He's a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Law, Ahmad Ibrahim Kuliah of Laws, the International Islamic University of Malaysia, and he advised the Office of Personal Data Protection Commissioner of Malaysia in various aspects of the PDP laws. And Dr. Sony is recently appointed by the Minister of Communications and Multimedia as the member of Personal Data Protection Appeal Tribunal. And also he obtained his doctoral, Dr. Sony is a 2008 Web Science Summers Doctoral School Fellow from the University of Oxford, and also a two-time fellow of the US-based Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. And Dr. Sony is a fellow researcher at Cyber Stewards Network, and also hosted by the Citizen Lab, University of Toronto, Canada. And also he is the core member of the Research Alliance for Data Governance and Cybersecurity based in Beijing, China. And he already arrived from traveling in Europe. How are you? Apa kabar? Cikgu? Ya, kalau Malaysia kan cikgu gitu ya. Okay. Prof. Sony, are you there? Can you hear me? Can you test your microphone? Hello? I think he is still on a meeting. He is still on a meeting. He just texted me a couple minutes ago that he has a meeting with the ministry, but we will wait him. Okay? And our fourth speaker, or our last speaker, will be Ibu Rina Shahrullah. She is a senior lecturer from Universitas International Batam, and she got PhD of Law from Burns School of Law, the University of Queensland, Brisbane, Australia. And she got the Master of Comparative Law from the same school, and she got the Bachelor of Law from Fakultas Hukum Universitas Hasanuddin, Makassar. And she also has a very outstanding experience. Recently, she is also having a senior lecturer position at the Faculty of Law and head of Women's Study Center, Universitas Internasional Batam. Before that, she was appointed as the head of postgraduate study, the Faculty of Law, Universitas Internasional Batam. And she also published, quite active in publishing international journals and domestic journals. You may see all the journals from the Google Scholar or Sinta. But recently, she also selected the major research in 2022, funded by Readi GIZ, I think this is from Germany, the audiovisual presentation production for public campaign for safe and fair migration in ASEAN region. And before that, the same funding for the topic entitled Public Campaign for Safe and Fair Migration in the ASEAN. And also with Yongsan University, she also conducted research with the entitled of the enforcement of the self-executing treaties in Indonesia. So I think this is all. I already finished my obligation to read all the summarize of our speakers. But because we have our speaker from the United States, so I would like to ask Associate Professor Christopher Kesson to start a presentation, because I know that it's already midnight at your position, right? Hello? Are you okay, Chris?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good.
No, it's no problem at all. It's only 6 o'clock here in the evening.
Yeah.
So
6 o'clock in the evening,
yes.
right? Okay.
Yes. So thank you for the kind introduction. Let me
You're welcome.
share my PowerPoint. It's okay.
Yes, I can hear you. And you have 25 maximum minutes to present, okay? Do you need any help? Is everything okay there?
Yes. Just a
Okay.
moment.
Sudah dijadikan co-host ya, Mas ya? Oke.
It's hard to ask this. I'm having a little difficulty sharing my screen.
If not, maybe I can help you. Mas Gangsar and Mas Gelar, can you share screen his PPT? I think you can find it in our group.
Yes.
Is that raining or winter there? I think it's not winter, it's summer, right?
It's summertime here. It just started
Summertime,
raining,
yeah.
as is normal here.
Yeah.
So as we're getting picked up, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Pak Dodi for the kind introduction. And thank you to Dean Booty and Professor Pak for hosting this event and putting it all together, and for the invitation. Today, I'm going to share just a brief perspective from the United States on immigration and migration into the United States, and our technical systems for immigration and those seeking asylum. So of course, I thought I would fly to the United States to give a better perspective from here. And I apologize that I can't join you. I was looking forward to our first live conference in our beautiful new building, but unfortunately, I've had to attend to some family things here. So once we get the PowerPoint uploaded shared to the screen.
Wait a minute, we also try to find your PPT.
Okay. Okay, that looks like it. So if you could just advance through the title screen to the overview, to the next slide. Okay.
Okay,
so,
good.
Thank you very much. First of all, yes, thank you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning there to everyone. And annyeonghaseyo. First of all, as a brief overview, I'd like to begin by giving just sort of the philosophy of immigration in the United States, sort of a history of how the immigration system in the United States was developed. Following that, I'll talk about legal migration and asylum, what our current system is now, and then address our data systems for dealing with migration and asylum. And then I'd like to discuss a couple recent developments and how, as politics has entered our immigration system, as they always do, how our data systems have addressed those human rights issues and legal issues that have arisen from some of the policies that are constantly changing with regard to immigration. And I probably won't use all of my time, and I hope I will save enough time to have some questions at the end of my lecture or at the end of the session. So if you could advance to the next slide, please. You know, our philosophy was America's basically a nation of immigrants. You know, in addition to the indigenous people that were already present in America when the Europeans arrived, most Americans can trace back their origins to another country. And some fairly recently, some hundreds of years ago. However, generally everybody here who wasn't indigenous is considered an immigrant, which I think makes makes America somewhat unique in that regard. If we could go to the next slide. Sorry, the picture's a little blurry, but this is the inscription on the Statue of Liberty, which was originally the only entry point or the main entry point into the United States for immigrants. And it says, give me your tired, your weary, your huddled masses yearning to be free, and a little more. And so, you know, it truly embraced those seeking a better life than they had in their previous countries. And that was sort of the basis for our immigration system. And we've come a long way from there, and in possibly a negative way, our immigration systems developed. So I'd like to go through a brief history, very brief history of our immigration law. So if you could advance to the next slide, please. Okay. So our country gained independence in 1776, actually July 4th, 1776. And until 1875, after our Civil War, until then, there was basically no immigration law. Okay, there was people could enter the United States freely at any time and for any reason. It wasn't until after the Civil War that the United States started to address the need to regulate immigration or migration into the United States. And so at the end of the 19th century, there was the General Immigration Act and, of course, the Chinese Exclusion Act. So we're already showing signs of our limitations and also sort of racist, biased legislation manifested in our immigration laws. And that goes all the way back to 1882. In 1885, again, limiting who can come to the United States to work. So that's sort of the first iteration of immigration law. And of course, at that time, there were very limited systems, but it sort of laid the foundation for how the policy would evolve. In 1892, we had national immigration policies. 1906, we actually established a government entity to deal with naturalization and migration, which was later called the INS in 1933. Again, it wasn't until World War I, after World War I, that we required passports for entry into the United States and started collecting data on immigration. Again, World War II, we encouraged migration to aid in the war effort. And post-war, our philosophy changed. Okay, it became a focus on enforcement, also addressing human rights. Of course, embracing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, giving rights to, at least in outline form for asylum seekers. And then that continued on with further regulations and further modifications. And it wasn't until 9/11, 2001, where immigration policy really started to focus on national security. So immigration became a national security issue, which really changed the focus from welcoming people to excluding those who are coming from other countries. At the time, next slide, please. I keep pressing my next button and it's not working. This evolved after 9/11 into three distinct entities: the Customs and Border Patrol, ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is the law enforcement body, and then Citizenship and Immigration Services, which is for those of you who have applied for a visa or a work permit in the United States, you started with the USCIS. And again, it's really, you can see just from the structure that the focus is on securing the borders, so to speak. Agents of the first two, the CBP and ICE, carry guns and badges as if they're law enforcement entities, and that's truly their focus. You may have met some of them if you've ever flown in to the airports here. So that's sort of how we got to where we are today in our immigration. And it really does reflect our immigration policies, and it informs this past, the way it developed has informed our system today. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, please. And the next slide. So the principles of immigration are essentially four. Okay, why do we allow people to migrate into America? First, of course, is reunification of families. So we give a high priority to bringing people from other countries into the United States in order to keep the family unit together. So if there are permanent residents of the United States or citizens of the United States who have family, close family abroad, they can be reunited through the immigration process. The next, and also very common and historical immigration principle, is admitting immigrants with valuable skills. Admitting immigrants who have skills that will increase the economy, to help deal with our labor shortages, our need for educated, skilled people who live abroad, and inviting them to the United States to contribute to the United States. The third is, of course, protecting refugees. And to whatever extent it's been successful, it's throughout certain times, and depending on who is in power here, there's been an emphasis on protecting refugees, especially refugees of wars and of armed conflicts. And then the third, the final the final immigration principle is to promote diversity. Okay, and this principle essentially says that our country should be diverse, it should be more diverse, and we can do that by inviting people from all cultures around the world to come to our country, and we are better off through our diversity. That's behind the principle philosophy there. Next slide, please. And of course, these are reflected in our legal pathways to immigration. So there's four basic. I'm oversimplifying here because I don't have that much time. I'm oversimplifying. Pathways to immigration, we have family-based immigration. Sometimes you'll hear it called chain migration, where one family member migrates and then they bring additional family members after they've already become permanent residents. Employment-based, where you're sponsored by a university or a company, and you're invited on a H-1B visa to come over and work in the United States. Again, this is really focusing on those migrants with special skills or skills that are in demand in the United States. Of course, the fourth is refugees and asylees in order to seek entry through as a refugee or as an asylee or asylum seeker. And the fourth is what we have is called a diversity visa. Sometimes it's called the visa lottery because it's granted on truly a luck basis. So we have a certain limit based on what countries and how many individuals can come from each different countries. And then those who wish to enter the country enter a lottery system for selection, just based on completely randomness. So those are four pathways to legal immigration. So if you could go to the next slide. Okay, advance. Thank you. So there's a couple of, go back. As for humanitarian relief, we offer temporary protection status. Again, people cannot return home because of whatever conditions, whether natural or man-made, like an ongoing armed conflict. We don't deport people back into harm's way. Similar with the DED, the Deferred Enforcement Departure, and that's simply an administrative delay. It doesn't really change their status. It just delays any enforcement action against them. And then one of our recent and fairly controversial humanitarian relief measures was what we call deferred action for childhood arrivals. And this is where a family came into the country illegally, never attained an official status within the country, but as children, they had no responsibility for entering the country. So as they get older, they're allowed a legal path towards permanent citizenship and towards a legal status. And so that DACA has been a big subject of controversy in the United States. But those are the measures that basically are outside the immigration system based on what we see as humanitarian relief. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so of course, it's impossible to mention immigration without mentioning politics. Our previous president, some of you may have heard of him, campaigned on limiting immigration, both legal and illegal. It was one of the key focuses of his campaign. And so when he became president, he implemented policies in order to drastically limit the number of migrants coming into the United States. He suspended the DACA program. He lowered the quotas and banned many Islamic majority countries from even seeking asylum or seeking to migrate to the United States. And one thing we'll talk about today even more is refugees and asylees that have arrived at the Mexican-US border, our southern border, were refused entry even though they were seeking asylum or seeking refugee status. And made to wait in Mexico, even if that wasn't their nationality, even if they weren't Mexican nationals, they were required to wait in Mexico. And it's been a huge disaster. And so when our current president, Joe Biden, came along, he reversed many of these policies. And so, it's difficult given that the power of our executive, our president, has in shaping immigration policies, that it creates a lot of legal uncertainty for people seeking to migrate to America. It creates a lot of legal uncertainty. And just recently, just this last month, the Supreme Court and one of their positive decisions that our Supreme Court has issued, it says the stay in Mexico policy violates U.S. law. It violates our U.S. law, which says we have a refugee and asylum policy, and we have to follow that. And the president can't interfere with that policy. So next slide, please. Okay, so want to talk briefly, because the subject of today's class is about our immigration system and our data, and how we protect that data and how we use that in order to reach our immigration goals. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so essentially, immigration data is handled by the Office of Immigration Statistics, the OIS. And the OIS has two mandates. One is to gather and disseminate data on the impact of immigration. Okay, and as you can imagine, this is, simply giving accurate data to the people who are responsible for shaping immigration policy. So they have good data and they understand, for example, for skilled workers, what sectors of our economy are foreign workers needed in? What conflicts are happening abroad, which may give rise to refugee or asylum status. And so these statistics and this data is used to shape policy. So it's very important in that respect. And by the way, the OIS is technically, there's no political appointees. It should be an apolitical entity within our government. So that's one of their duties, one of their mandates. The other is to provide reliable and secure operational data. Okay, so in dealing with certain issues, in dealing with the immigrants that are currently in our system right now, is the data reliable? Is it secure? Is it not being used for nefarious purposes? And is it reliable? And can we base decisions on this? And so it seems like, honestly, a small part of the immigration system. You don't hear about it very much. You more hear about Customs and Border Patrol, but it actually plays an important role in shaping immigration policy. For those who look at this data and these statistics and understand what the real situation is. So next slide, please. Okay.
Hello? You have 5 minutes. You still have 5 minutes.
Okay.
5 minutes left, okay?
Okay, thank you. So some recent developments in immigration data. This Migrant Protection Protocols Cohort Report. This was a comprehensive scheme dealing with those waiting at the Mexican border for refugee status. And just a little more background in this policy. There was a number of, if someone is seeking, who's outside the country, wants to enter the country as a refugee, there's a certain legal process that must be followed. And up until 2017, I believe, those seeking refugee status were allowed to enter the United States and remain in either a detention facility or released on their own while they were waiting a ruling on being granted asylum. And in 2017, our former president decided that it would be better for them to wait in Mexico and to have their cases adjudicated. And this caused problems for a number of reasons. One of the reasons was that most of those seeking asylum were not Mexican nationals. This was not their home, and they were forced to stay in Mexico where there were no facilities to house them. They were subject to criminal activity, and many of them just simply gave up and went back south of the Mexican border to where they had originally sought asylum from. And so one of the roles of immigration data was to manage this system and to evaluate their fear claims, their vaccination status. This was during COVID, of course, or became escalated during COVID, processing outcomes, returning them to Mexico or disenrolling them from the process. And so this data this tracking system was used really for the protection of those who were still in Mexico and who were allowed to enter the United States pending the outcome of their asylum claim. So it really paved the way to manage this system of these asylum seekers, in this group in particular. And so it paved the way for their safety and their increases in their safety and their entry into the United States pending resolution of their status. So this little tiny government organization was very instrumental in pushing for changes to this policy. So that's one of the most recent developments in that issue. And hopefully the policy will go away and this won't be necessary anymore. Next slide, please. Again, immigration data is also collected on border security and tracks our need for perceived or otherwise as our need for border security enforcement, and then really tracks where our immigrants are coming from, what their plans are, how they every immigrant is part of this OIS tracking system. And it's been very successful in, again, assisting immigrants resettle into the United States, and also protecting them from exploitation as immigrants, and an attempt to prevent human trafficking, illegal immigration, and other crimes related to migration. But again, there's still, you can see this emphasis on national security as the basis for our immigration policy. So final slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So basically, more work needs to be done. Okay. One of there's been a lot of, we've undone our bad actions against immigrants in the past. We've, gotten rid of the Chinese Exclusion Act a long time ago. We've attempted to create a policy of welcoming and meeting those policies and those goals of our immigration system. And we kind of went down on that over the last 4 years. And so there's going to be a lot of work to bring that back. And we're using this data and we're using these information systems. And the integrity of those information systems is important in order to get us to reach and to get us to reach those goals that we've aspired to. So I'll open it up for questions. I'm not sure if it's now or at the end of our all the speaker sessions, but I thank you very much for your time. And I look forward to addressing any other issues you might have. So thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much. Please give applause for Mr. Christopher Kesson. So, Chris, can you stay awake until in the next 2 hours? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we will have a Q&A after this session. Okay, after all the speakers presented their presentation. Okay, so thank you. I think without further ado, we will have another speaker presentation, and I think I would like to ask Ibu Rina. Ibu Rina, okay. Can you connect?
Yeah. Can you hear my voice? Is it
clear
enough?
Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah. Burina, you have 25 minutes maximum for presentation.
All right. Okay.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So just let me share first the slides. Okay. I will go up. Can you see these slides clearly?
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah? Okay. Good. Okay. So I will start here. Okay. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Okay. I would like to share. This is a very interesting topic that we are going to discuss today, and actually is part of my research also, which is funded by ASEAN, European Union under the ERAD, GIS. We talk about the immigration policy, but it's in the ASEAN scope. Okay, so what I'm going to discuss today is basically, I would like to focus in the case of Batam, because as you know that Batam is actually the gate of Indonesia, because we are very close to Singapore and Malaysia. So if you have time to come to Batam, because now the Singaporean border is open, Malaysian border is open, even if it's not that frequent ferry to Singapore and Malaysia as a previous time. So let me talk about the slides one by one, but I started from the general or the introduction about the immigration policy and the law, immigration law in Indonesia, before try to focusing on the case of Batam. Okay, so if we talk about the relevant instruments on immigration, in Indonesia, we've got a lot of legal instruments. We have the laws, in particular law number 6 of 2011 concerning immigrations. We have government regulations. We have presidential regulations. Okay, and we also have other, which is ministerial regulation, because the Directorate General of Immigration is actually under the Ministry of Law and Human Rights. So if you can see on the slides, there are number of ministerial regulations which is relevant to the immigration issues and then regulations and policies in Indonesia. So I believe that the committee will distribute this slide, so I don't have to mention it, all of it. Okay, now let's look at how is the political of law, how is the approach of Indonesia. It's quite shifting and raised a lot of debates, saying that now the immigration policy of Indonesia, which is selective policy, but because of the free visa visit policy, and then start to become to open door policy. So before this regulation is implemented, is quite a number of questions raises, because saying that it's actually Indonesia implement the selective policy, which is try to screen the foreigners, okay, only those who are provide benefits and does not endanger the security and order of the Indonesian state can enter the territory of Indonesia. But it can be argued at the same time, because the government also open a new policies giving the free visa, okay, up to now it's already 169 countries, and this selective policy shifted, okay, the strictness of the selective policy is actually goes towards the open door policy. But then how the Indonesian can counter this, and I will explain later. And interestingly, because we have 166 immigration offices all over Indonesia, and only, the large, that's how Indonesia is so large, okay, comparing to Singapore, it's just like Batam size, but Indonesia is very large. But we only have 158 checkpoints and 24 immigration attaché overseas, okay, and then all these institutions, they work together and synergize in order to screen and then to conduct surveillance and also the data, collect data, and then analyze the data and issue the data. Okay, but this is under the immigration office itself. Okay, so if you talk about the immigration, what are the functions? Okay, there are 3 functions basically under the law, and then this is the functions of over Indonesia. It's the community service function, because the immigration office issue travel documents, visa, state permits, and also provide information and educate public about the immigration policies and laws. And the immigration also has the law enforcement function, which is non-judicial mechanisms. It's more administrative measures, and then judicial mechanisms, we call it pro justicia, when someone violates the law, and then they will see whether that comes within the administrative measures or it's already the crime. So it's a different approach, to resolve that problem. So the third function of immigration is security function for immigration control, which is to collect, process, and present data and information of immigration to Indonesian citizens and foreigners to ensure the compliance with the immigration laws and policies. We will talk about the data later, okay, and how it's actually the data is used and how the data is protected and what is really the function of the data, the immigration data in Indonesia. So if we talk about the first function, the community service function, okay, as I mentioned before, that's actually the immigration office issued the travel documents, and you can see there are, the classification of travel documents there. There's a passports and then travel documents in lieu of a passport, and also visa. Okay, so this immigration office will issue visa, diplomatic visa, official visa, visit visa, and limited stay visa. Also issue the entry permit, stay permit, which consists of official stay permit, visit stay permit, limited stay permit, and permanent stay permit. So all these, okay, for the community service functions and all types of travel documents, visas, entry permits, and stay permits is actually our regulated, precisely in the immigration law of Indonesia. So if you look at the law number 6 of 2011, you can find it in that provisions. Each article is actually mentioning it very precisely. Okay, so let's move to the law enforcement function. So as I mentioned, there are two types of mechanisms. That's the first is the non-judicial mechanism. So it's more in immigration administrative measures, which is include refusal or grant entry permits, leave permits, immigration permits, and immigration action. So more it's administrative measures. And also there is what we call the judicial mechanisms or pro justicia. So there's investigative authority, because the immigration law of Indonesia is like specialist. So there's investigative measures can be conducted by a special unit, okay, and then they can summon, arrest, detention, examination, and others, okay, and then these files, which is collected by the special task force of the special units, okay, and it's mandated by the law, and then they file it to the general prosecutor for the next steps or the process of law enforcement. So let me move to focus on the law of enforcement. So when we talk about the law and enforcement, it's actually this function is not only for the foreigners, but also for the Indonesian citizens. So both, so the immigration law of Indonesia is actually cover both Indonesian citizens and also foreigners. But for the Indonesian citizens are most focus on the false identity issues, sponsor liability, sponsorship, double sponsorships, and the involvement in immigration rules violations. And then the foreigners are focused on the following problems: falsification of identity, registration of foreigners, and the provision of surveillance foreigners book, abuse of residence permit, illegal entry or illegal activities, monitoring or rates the geographical vulnerabilities in crossing. So if you look at the law, the immigration law itself, and you can look at it, find the provisions, the articles there is actually very precisely and then explicitly talk about this. It's mentioned there that this is the law enforcement is not only focused on the foreigners, but also Indonesia. So how is the process of law enforcement? So this is for a general, so it's, it's cover every part of Indonesia, and later we will see how it's really a problem in Batam as the gate of Indonesia. So the immigration action is carried out when a complaint is received from SIMKIM. Okay, now I will talk about SIMKIM later. Okay, this is about the system in our immigration and how is the SIMKIM works, and then how is the data is collected, and what happened if there's a problem in the data, what happened if, for example, there's a crash in the data, whether we have a disaster recovery center, and I will discuss it later in these other slides. So the next step in the law enforcement process is taking the suspect to the immigration office for examination regarding the alleged immigration violations, as outlined in the inspections event, because there is a berita acara in the berita acara pemeriksaan in Indonesia, that's what we call it. And then the next step is the prosecution subsections under immigration office implements detention, the immigration detention room, okay, and that it has a special room, okay, and then only for 30 days, maximum 30 days, okay, and then the prosecution subsections of immigration office prepare for deportation. So this is
excuse me, Burina.
Yes.
I think we cannot hear you very clear. Can you try to speak close to the microphone?
Oh, sorry,
nice.
Sorry.
Okay.
Now, is it okay?
Yeah,
okay,
this
right?
is good now. Okay.
Now, I feel like I'm almost kissing my laptop. Okay, that's right. Is it all right now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so right. So may I just continue? I will summarize it later and what I've been talking. Okay, so the next, if we talk about the security function, so as you know that immigration office is actually have three functions, okay, and then one of the function is the security functions. What is really the security function? Is maintaining national security. So immigration is the first and the last filter on arrivals and departure of foreigners to and from the territory of the Republic of Indonesia. And security function is also formed through preventive measures abroad, okay, for Indonesian citizens, and deterrence for foreigners, which we say that we implemented selective policy for foreigners through the examination of visa applications and conduct immigration intelligence operations. But then probably some of you will raise the questions, then why the Indonesia opened the policy that we also give a free visa to foreigners, which is lead to the open door policy, which is not anymore in the selective policy of immigration. So when we talk about the immigration control, it actually the Directorate of Immigration has conducted, this is the management, and it has the control, the immigration control, and then this is all the data is actually kept, that it has the management, what we call it border control management, PCM, and then through the development of immigration information system and management. Probably in Indonesia, you are quite familiar, hopefully, with SIMKIM. Okay, this is Sistem Teknologi Informasi dan Manajemen Keimigrasian, and the approach in that in SIMKIM, or the concept, is Integrated Border Management System, IBMS. And then also the Directorate of Migrations from time to time improve the professionalisms of the Timpora. Timpora is the foreign surveillance team, okay, because they have to work, there's a coordination between the Timpora. The Timpora is under the Directorate of Immigrations, so under the Immigration Office, and then it's also synergized with other stakeholders. We will talk about it when we see from the Batam perspective. So it's more like, I give you the reality, what happened in Batam, rather than give you more concepts, because this is more concepts and theory. So, and also strengthening human resources of immigration. So they have training. I'm one of the trainer for the immigrations for the Sumatra area. Okay, so from time to time, the Office of Immigration call me to give them training. Talk about visa, we talk about criminal law and other issues, but not technical, because I'm out of that scope. No, not the technical issues. So when we talk about immigration control, and I think you can just look at for Indonesian sides, for the Indonesian nationals, okay, you can look at the Article 67 first one of the immigration law, okay. And so what is really the control? They start like collecting, processing, and presenting data and informations, and then compiling the name list of Indonesian that is subjected to prevention to access the Indonesian territory, and monitoring of every Indonesian citizen who applies any travel documents, exit or enter to Indonesian territory and present outside the Indonesian territory, and taking photo and fingerprint. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's not for only Indonesian, but also for foreigners. So there is an immigration control, and it's regulated under Article 68, okay, 1 of the immigration law. So it's also how it's the control. It's by collecting, processing, and presenting data and information, compiling the name list of foreigners that is subject to deterrence or prevention, controlling and presence and activities of the foreigners within the Indonesian territory, taking photo and fingerprint, and other activities that may legally accountable. So both, okay, so the control, immigration control, is both for Indonesian nationals and also for foreign nationals. So if we look at is actually what is the control. Okay, what is really the control procedures of immigration? So there is a ministerial regulations number 4 of 2017 concerning immigration control procedures. So there are 2 types of controls. The first is administrative control, and then the second one is the field control. So I hope you can just read this because I have more slides. Okay, and this is actually the translation from the ministerial regulation. So let me focus it in Batam. Why? Because not only because I live in Batam, it's because Batam is the golden triangle, and you can see here, okay, Batam is very close to Singapore, only about less than an hour, or depends from which ferry terminals you will depart. Okay, so usually about 1 hour from Batam to Harbourfront ferry terminal in Singapore, and also about 2 hours to Johor Bahru, Malaysia. Okay, so it's very close. Okay, so before COVID-19 pandemic hit all over the world, Batam enjoy a lot of benefits from foreigners, particularly from Singapore and Malaysia. Okay, we have a good, relation with those people. Okay, so in Batam, you can see a lot of people actually from Singapore and Malaysia, and they spend sometimes in Batam. They spend about 2 days, 3 days for tourism, and some of them also, have conferences and other activities. So if we talk about Batam, this is a little bit of introduction. So it's the largest city in the province of Rio Islands. Okay, and the population based on this census is 1 million plus. And as I mentioned before, it's really close to Singapore and Malaysia. Malaysia is Johor Bahru, Malaysia. And one of the special regulation given to Batam by the government, the special status, because Batam is a special economic zone. Okay, so it's quite different from other parts of Indonesia. Okay, we enjoy free taxes, and then that's why there's a lot of free taxes, free holiday taxes, and a lot of quite what we call it, relaxation in terms of investments. Okay, if the investors coming to Batam. Okay, so that's about Batam. But not only the positive impacts, okay, because the international mobility of people, they're coming to Batam. So not only people from Singapore or from Malaysia, which are mostly coming from those places to Batam, but also from other countries. They transit to Singapore and they enter Batam in order to, to go to other parts of Indonesia. Just for example, Professor Parr, okay, transit to Singapore and then transit to going to Batam. From Batam, took a airplane to Yogyakarta. So because of this mobility, okay, there are positive and negative impacts, really that the Batam people feel. So let me look at it for the positive impact. The positive impact is the knowledge and transfers of technology by foreign workers. A lot of foreign workers, in Batam, because we have many industrial parks in Batam, and then for the certain positions, okay, are filled by the foreign workers. But of course, the foreign workers, they have to work together with the local workers, the Indonesian workers, because there must be a transfer of knowledge and skills, and it's mandated by the law. And then also benefits for businesses, so micro, small, and medium enterprises. Yes, please. Yeah.
You have 5 minutes left.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. So I was okay. So so this is the positive impacts, but at the same time, there's a negative impact there. Human trafficking, illegal migrant workers. Okay, and also the attitude of the people of Batam, which is quite free to alcohol. Okay. So what is really the common migration issues in Batam? It's all about the documents, because people sometimes come to Batam, use the ASEAN free visa, but in reality they actually work in Batam. They go to the area, industrial parks, and they work there. So they misuse all the permits. Okay. So this is the data. Okay, you can check the data in 2021. It's those people entering Batam is about this number, and then let's see what happened in in this 2020. Okay, increase because the borders open, and mostly from Singapore and Malaysia. So now we have checkpoints because Batam, the office, the immigration office, Batam is actually have 7 checkpoints for seaports and then 1 in airport. So this is the checkpoints because as I mentioned before that Batam is actually the gate, okay, of Indonesia. And for the surveillance, okay, there is the decision of Timpora. This is the surveillance, foreign surveillance team, okay, and then this Timpora of the immigration, they coordinated with other stakeholders. You can see from the Pemko Batam, this the Batam city government, and also BNN, and also this is narcotics, drugs and narcotics, and then also police. So there's a lot stakeholders which involved in Timpora, but the leading sectors it's in Timpora itself. Okay, so the leading sector for the immigration is Timpora. Okay, so how the surveillance method? They impose the closed surveillance and also open surveillance. Okay, and the management system. Okay, as I mentioned before, there's a border control management and then also SIMKIM. In the context of Batam, it's very interesting that SIMKIM this is the information system which has a number of applications. This is, you can see the applications there, okay? And then the applications is actually also connected with the investment, you call it one single submission for the investment information system. So it's connected there, okay? So this is all the data's there, okay? The data's there, but maybe you will raise some question, what happens if there is a problem in the data? Because today we only have 2 disaster recovery centers, which is in Bali. So when there's a Bali bombing and then all the data directly in the real time gets transferred to Rio Island, province. So that's how they manage to recover all the data of the SIMKIM. So the challenges for Batam status, because as I mentioned before, that actually Batam has a special economic zone. It's open for business. It's the law itself provides the leg specialist, the special status that for Batam. So we are not taxes in some areas, and then quite open for investors, but there's no status, special status relating to the implementation of immigration law. So this is always, we say, oh, why you have to implement the immigration law so strict, okay? Even if in Batam, for example, Singaporeans only use the ASEAN visa because the ASEAN free visa is only for leisure, for tourism. But when they are funded, they're inspecting their factory in Batam, and then the community reported, or there is a reported through SIMKIM, and then those people may be arrested, okay? And then it will go to the certain procedures, okay? And then the Simpora will come to the spot and then talk to that person and then process it. So this is actually a number of challenge, to Batam, because from the perspective of the special status of Batam, how the people interact, negative impact given to the Batam people because of a lot of interaction with the foreigners, and what about the data protections in particular, because not only the foreigners misuse, okay, the immigration document, but also the Indonesian. They go to Singapore and Malaysia using ASEAN free visa, but they end up actually working in Malaysia. And I've got a lot of, respondents, and they reveal those experiences. Actually, they work in Malaysia or Singapore illegally. So I think I will just end up my presentation there. Sorry, because for limited time. So if you want to read more, or if you want to know more about immigration law, refugees law, or anything about immigration, please contact me, because I'm still working on that project at the moment. And then as students, probably you can go to these references, very interesting. And as I mentioned yesterday, we actually had Okay, on the 4th of July, we had a focus group discussion talking about this, and some of the data and then the discussion which I integrated in this PowerPoint is actually also voiced out by the head of intelligence subsections of Immigration Office, Class 1, the special for Batam. Thank you very much, and I'm very happy if you can give me some questions. It's quite a challenge, because I have to put it in my research report as well. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Burina. Please give applause to her. So just let me conclude some points in Bahasa Indonesia from our two previous speakers. Bapak Ibu sekalian dan mahasiswa sekalian peserta seminar internasional. Jadi apa yang disampaikan oleh Pak Kris tadi secara highlight, beliau memberikan penjelasan bahwa di Amerika Serikat itu terkait dengan polisi kebijakan imigrasi itu kerap kali berubah. Seperti pada saat periode rezim Presiden Trump, beliau sangat menginginkan adanya pengetatan khususnya terkait dengan border check. Jadi di Amerika Serikat mereka melakukan pembatasan yang amat sangat ketat sekali, khususnya bagi mereka warga asing yang akan ke Amerika Serikat. Bahkan pada saat itu ada kebijakan beberapa negara, misalnya saya pernah mendapatkan visa beberapa negara, negara Muslim sebagian besar, kemudian saya tidak bisa mendapatkan visa dan tinggal di Amerika Serikat untuk sementara. Dan juga ketika Presiden Biden menjadi presiden belum lama ini, beliau juga merubah banyak sekali kebijakan imigrasi, karena memang beliau sangat pro terhadap hak asasi manusia, karena siapa tahu orang yang akan datang ke Amerika Serikat, mereka meminta perlindungan, khususnya perlindungan hak asasi manusia dan lain sebagainya. Dan tadi Bu Rina juga sangat luar biasa sekali menyampaikan banyak informasi di balik perkembangan yang ada di dalam Undang-Undang Imigrasi kita tahun 2011, di mana ternyata Indonesia ini punya checkpoint yang sangat banyak sekali jika kita bandingkan dengan Korea Selatan. Saya tidak tahu nanti dengan Malaysia, yang jumlahnya ternyata ada sekitar 158, dan kita juga punya atase keimigrasian di beberapa negara, karena banyaknya warga asing atau warga Indonesia kita yang keluar negeri dan warga negara asing yang masuk ke negara kita, itu ada 24 perwakilan atase imigrasi yang dikirimkan di luar negeri. Dan ternyata dari hasil pengamatan Bu Rina tadi, ternyata karena posisi strategis Indonesia yang berada di antara dua benua, dua samudra, dan kondisi kita sebagai negara kepulauan. Sehingga memang tadi disampaikan di Batam sendiri ada sedikit kondisi khusus, di mana warga negara yang paling banyak berkunjung itu ternyata warga negara Singapura, berkunjung ke Batam. Saya juga sering pernah ke Batam dulu, Ibu, ternyata juga luar biasa banyak warga Singapura di sana, dan mereka melakukan bisnis karena memang Batam ini mereka memiliki kondisi khusus wilayah ekonomi dan investasi, sehingga banyak sekali yang melakukan bisnis di sana. Tetapi ternyata terkait imigrasi tidak ada kebijakan khusus, sehingga kadangkala ada yang overstay dan lain sebagainya, dan ini bisa mengancam pertahanan keamanan kita. I think that's all my summary in Bahasa Indonesia. And our next speaker is already prepared. He is ready now. Pak Sony, can you hear my voice? Pak Sony, Prof. Sony?
Yes, Prof.
Yeah, okay. Can you make sure that your voice could be loud and so on?
Yeah,
Okay,
how about
good.
it? Is it
Okay, good.
loud?
Apa kabar Pak Sony di sana?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah baik.
Alhamdulillah sehat. Semoga
Okay,
semua
baik.
sehat.
Jadi, so you will have around 25 minutes from now to present about your presentation, and I will remind you when it comes to 5 minutes before 25 minutes, okay? And yeah, this is his presentation will be about the Malaysian immigration system and its data protection, the roles and challenges. Saya persilahkan Pak Sony.
Terima kasih Pak Dodi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good morning to everyone who is there physically, which I feel terribly sorry that I cannot be there physically, even though Dr. Dodi had had invited and offered me to come there, but unfortunately, maybe not this time. Hopefully, some other time, Dr. Dodi. And thank you again for the invitation by the Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, which I consider as another home for me. I believe Dr. Dodi knows that I was a student of UII before for some short stints of time. So I'm always happy to be able to come back. And I'd like to greet our Dean as well, Professor Dr. Budi Agus Riswandi, the Dean and recently promoted Professor, who is also a very good friend of mine. I shall extend my heartiest congratulations, double congratulations for Prof. Budi for the recent achievement and appointment. And my warm greetings to all the fellow speakers, Professor Park Ji-yoon. I believe this is not the first time that we met, albeit virtually, and Professor Christopher Kessen, as well as Dr. Rina Shahriani. And of course, I shall greet my beloved students and all the audiences from perhaps the academic staff and all the students and invited guests. So as you see here, my background, if anyone has made any search before, has been on data protection law. So Dr. Dodi and the committee member, the organizer, has been kind enough to give me this topic, which otherwise will be quite new to me myself, which is about immigration system, about immigration law, which is, I'm very new to it. But when the organizer attached the second part of the title, which is the data protection law surrounding the immigration system, then it gives me some basis to start my work and to share with the audience today. The agenda for today, and which I hope can be completed within the time given. First, which I believe had been shared by the previous speakers, is why immigration system matters. Then second, I'll be sharing about the Malaysian immigration law as well as cyber policies and see how the two interconnect and interact. And then the third will be more specifically on the personal data protection law in Malaysia and the way forward. As to why and how immigration system matters, I believe this has been also shared by the other speakers. As we know, immigration matters is so much at the center of the issues of sovereignty, defense, and security. Yeah, because the immigration matters does provide rooms for the government, for the authority in place to actually regulate the entry as well as the departure of people from or into each country. And this is so much related to the concept of the sovereignty itself, because it is up to the government, it is up to the authority based on the law to allow or to disallow entries of people, and if they consider that some people or some entrance is compromising the issues of national security, and certainly they will have triggered the alerts to the system and to the government or to the authority, and they will not allow that. So this is very much obvious if we look at the immigration laws everywhere in the world, including one in Malaysia, that they do provide clauses in the law talking about the type of immigration or immigrants. Yeah, when you talk about the people, the type of the immigrants which are prohibited into the country. So they do have all this list of criteria. The immigration system also matters because it is very much part of the, or very much central and significant to the law enforcement. And part of the law enforcement is to decide and to determine the parties that belong to the litigation as well as to the enforcement. And it is of the interest of the law enforcement to ensure that people of interest, those people who are potentially subject to litigation or prosecutions, shall remain within the border of the country to enable the enforcement of the law, to enable presenting the people into the court system, into the court of law, and to enable the court even deliver sanctions as well as remedies, yeah, to people who are involved. That is why immigration matters will always work hand in hand, side by side, with the law enforcement agencies. Other than that, immigration system matters because it is very much determining the economy and welfare of the nation as well as society. As we know that the growth of economics, the growth of economy and the commercial activities do involve the traffic of properties, the traffic of goods, the traffic of people. And this is where the immigration becomes a front line, to allow those flow of traffic. Immigration, together with customs, will be at the front line to allow these activities, business and commercial activities, to flow as well as to flourish, in a certain country. That is why immigration system will matter in order to uphold and to support the economic and welfare of the society. If the immigration system does not or is not provided adequately, then certainly it will compromise these things that we mentioned here. So this is related very much with the next point, which is the traffic of human and goods. Certainly immigration deals especially with traffic of human, but not goods. Goods, we will have this customs office or customs agency to deal with the traffic of goods across the border. But for the traffic of human, this is where immigration system shall matter. And that is how identifications as well as information processing and personal data processing will be very much needed in order to ensure the smooth traffic of human as well as goods. Last but not least, immigration system matters because it symbolizes very much or very easily about the image of the nation itself. This is the front window. This is like the front the front yard of any nation. When they start enter into certain country, the first thing they will see is the border control or the immigration control. These are the face of a nation. If you have the immigration system inadequately organized, then certainly it will leave a very bad impression to people who come to the country. So they are at the front line of the national image. Of course, there are many other people and many other parties who also contribute to the national image, which comes second, which comes third after this immigration matters. Always we know that one of those frontliners is taxi drivers. Taxi drivers are also playing very important role in bringing the national image because they are among the first people our tourists will meet and will face and will talk to. So they also, of course, have their own role. But now we focus to those people who are really at the front line, which is the people who man the immigration and border controls. And that is why from this slide, we are very clear that immigration system is really an essential service. Yeah, it is an essential service. Sometimes they call it is a critical service. Yeah, by which or without which, the nation may be suffering one way or another, either economically, politically, security-wise, or even socially. So this is one of those systems that need to be critically attended to, organized, regulated, well maintained, as well executed. So from here, as immigration is a system by itself, because immigration does not depend solely on, for example, on the people, but immigration matters depends on so many aspects: the people, the technologies, and then the processing, and not to forget the procedures, policies, as well as laws. All this will contribute to the whole ecosystem of an immigration. So today we are going to talk more specifically on that particular factor, which is the data system, the information system, how well it is being preserved, how well it is being presented and being used. So when we talk about Malaysian context, here you see a picture with the two ministers. One at the left side was the Minister of Defense of Malaysia, and with his counterpart from Singapore, and they each were standing on their within the jurisdiction of their own country, within the border of their own country, because right in front of them is a borderline between Malaysia and Singapore. So this really symbolizes how important and how real the border and the immigration matter is. So in Malaysia, if we look further, there are some laws and policies where they will interact when we talk about the immigration system. Of course, first thing, it will be the Immigration Act itself. It is an Immigration Act 1959. Of course, there had been few amendments since there, but we still call it and name it as an Immigration Act 1959/63, where they did the review. So Immigration Act does provide all those rules, which I'm not going to explain in details here. Basically putting all the fundamental rules about the roles and liabilities of immigration agencies, as well as rights of people, and in terms of entry and departure, entry into and departure from Malaysia. Nevertheless, the Immigration Act does not provide specifically on the organization or administration of the system. We don't find in this act where it says that such system has to be in such a way and such a way. No, but we do find some fundamental principles. For example, what are the criteria of entry? What are the criteria of non-entry? And why do we need identification? And so on. As to how we do the identification, it is not mentioned there. I believe there will be in some bylaws and regulations. Then we have Act 574, which is the Penal Code. This is the mother of all the penal offenses. And we can find that under this penal code, it deals with some offenses relating to the stay as well as the entrance into the country. So we do have some offenses whereby if you enter into Malaysia, for certain purposes, then it will be considered as an offense. For example, offenses related to terrorism, even transit, in certain country can also be a basis of an offense. So penal code does provide a wide array of offenses, that may also relate with the immigration law and policy. Then we have this act, very specific, into the administration as well as the usage of communications, information and communications tools, which is Communications and Multimedia Act 1998. This law does deal with all sectors, including government and non-government sectors. That is why when we talk about immigration system, then we need to have a look at this act and see some rules are there. One of the notable rules under this act is about the offense of misusing the information system, for certain purpose. So that kind of offense will be dealt with under this act. Then when we talk about cyber policy, we also have the MCSS, which was preceded with NCSP. NCSP is National Cybersecurity Policy 2006. But MCSS is Malaysia Cybersecurity Strategy 2020. So under these two policies, these are not acts, these are policies. They actually highlight the principles and fundamental principles in securing data and information system. And these include those systems that belong to the critical information infrastructure, which includes the immigration. Actually, if you look at the NCSP, there are 10 sectors which are considered as critical sector. One of those sectors is security and defense. So if we consider immigration related to security and defense, then it will be considered as part of the critical infrastructure. Likewise, immigration is also part of the transportation system, because you cannot transport, you cannot move outside the country until and unless you get an immigration clearance. So there's another way of looking at it, that immigration is part of the critical infrastructure. In the pipeline, for everyone's benefit, we can inform that Malaysian government is now also preparing another law called National Cybersecurity Law, which is now in the process of very early consultation. So based on this strategy, as we see that Malaysia cyberspace, they envision to be secure, trusted, and resilient, fostering economic property and citizens' well-being. So Malaysia is very much aware that if you have a good system, critical information system, such as the immigration system, then it will help to create a trust from people to Malaysia and to the government. So like in contrary, if the system fail the expectation of people, then at the same time it will deprive them from the trust. It will deprive the trust to the system. That's why this is a very important guideline or fundamentals Malaysian government is looking at. Now we can see that immigration related data is everywhere. When you move from, even if you stay within one country, they already process your data, starting from your entry into your stay and until you move to other country. So I can highlight here, for example, immigration related data, your personal identification. With your government itself, they hold your passport data. So this passport data is personal identification. And if you use the passport for your travel, then certainly those data will be within their retention as well, whether we are talking about our own government or foreign governments to the country where we already visited. So all this data will be processed by them. Personal identification, physical and genetic data, travel logs, businesses and works that we do in other countries, travel insurance that we have, because the moment you travel, you will need to buy a travel insurance. And with travel insurance, then you may have to reveal some health data and families data and so on. And not to forget your activities in your social media, because when you switch on your mobile gadget, that will also uh, record your travel tracks. So not only the government will have the data, but also a third party. Your social media providers will have all those data about your travel, and therefore it is so much related to your personal information, your locations, wearables, transactions, pictures, preferences, likes, mentions, etc. So these are, if you look further, then we realize that the immigration matters does not only deal with passport issue, but it deals with our uh, so much of our personal information, because it will record your travel as well as your activities during your travel. That is why, again, when we talk about immigration system, it will certainly hold and process so much of personal data. So when we talk about management immigration system, then we have no choice but to ensure that such immigration system does um, attend or address these issues of personal data protection. Because when PDP law is absent or lacking, it will cause uninterrupted exploitation. We are not saying who will do that, but everyone is a potential suspect. Everyone who has our data is a potential suspect, whether they are government, whether they are non-government. They are all potential suspects because our data is within their hands. Whether the data will be breached intentionally or incidentally or accidentally, still those people who process data has some responsibilities. So that is why having the law will be very, very important, and now we want to match it within the immigration system. And this one is to highlight to you how bad it can be, how bad when the data is being breached, and it will cause so much a nightmare for businesses as well as for the owners of the personal information. So from this, I'm taking you further to the importance of having personal data protection law. And if you look at Asia, and now we see some colors here. Those in blue already have the data protection law. Those in white, they don't have it yet. But those in red, they are preparing or they are still in the drafting process. So we know that Indonesia, for example, is drafting the law, and it is now being debated in the parliament. So we hope that one day, the whole this region will have a data protection law and try to make them as much as possible to be compatible and to be comparatively similar. That will really create a very good environment for data processing across borders, and certainly it will help the immigration matters one way or another. In Malaysia, of course, the privacy is very much given attention. From this case of Abdul Wahab bin Tohsiwe versus Tedrick, Judge Abdul Wahab had mentioned that in his judgment that Malaysians are concerned about privacy of themselves. If a comprehensive poll of Malaysians is taken, surely large section of Malaysian people would express concern about their privacy, and some might view the computer as a threat to their private lives because so much data is being circulated there. So that's how Malaysians, as far as I see, the feeling and the awareness of privacy is getting better, even though it is not as good as what we want as of now. So we have few cases
Excuse me, Prof. Sony.
Yes, yes.
You
How
still
many
have
time?
5 minutes left.
All
Okay.
right, very good.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to show you very quickly some slides that we do have cases. This one that I show you is a case of data breach involving, of course, as you know, you see one of the biggest airline, the biggest airliner in Malaysia, where one of their staff, has leaked the picture of some of their passengers. These passengers happen to be a popular actress, and actor. That's why one of the staff, snapped their picture together with the boarding pass and leaked them on Facebook. So these people were suing the Malaysia Airlines, and finally they have settled it outside the court. Now I want to take you, of course, this is not only Malaysian thing to learn from. In Germany, this is why our government has to be very, very careful. Even a police officer, was found guilty under the data protection law because they had used the data, personal data within their system for private contact. You see here. So a police officer had collected the data from the police record for the purpose of private contact. So of course, this is wrong. I can also compare with, for example, university. If the university, collect the data of students for a private contact, which is not yet consented, and the person was not happy, then this can be also a basis of an offense. So that's why, because data is to be used only for the purpose when it was being collected. And then from Singapore, we have some lessons about data relating to security agencies, where they had a data breach in their system. Basically, someone was hacking, someone was intruding into the system and caused some data breach. So the Authority of Data Protection has fined this company who was providing the system to Singapore Armed Forces. So in this case, the vendor, to the armed forces was actually fined. In rupiah, it is 367 million. Because of the data hacking. Of course, the hacker, we don't know who the hacker was, but the fact that you have not maintained the system well, that is the basis of the wrong. So if we have the law, both either in any country, so we can use this as a basis that you have not maintained the system very well, regardless of the hacker. Of course, the hacking itself is an offense under the law. It is something else. But the fact that we do not provide the secure system, can be another basis of an offense. That's why for immigration system, they will need to ensure that it is secure as much as possible. Let me now finalize. Data protection law in Malaysia has been there since 2010. And then in 2015, we have some standards. And then in 2018, a government agency was sued for an alleged data breach of 46 million mobile subscribers in Malaysia. But this legal suit has not gone anywhere. It was stopped. And then in 2020, the law is currently under a legislative amendment. So we shall see, inshallah. And the way forward, this will be the last point. What I can say from all this, as we know, the immigration system is a very critical point, very essential service. So we cannot take lightly about the security and privacy of the data. It is a critical national information infrastructure. Then the data system should always be given a security priority. Lack of clear rules of personal data in the government processing should be urgently looked at. This is what I want to share. Please, Indonesia is now drafting a law on data protection. Please learn from Malaysian default. The law in Malaysia is unfortunately not applicable to government. The law of data protection in Malaysia is not applicable to government. That's why for immigration purpose, you cannot use the PDP, Data Protection Act, against the government. Yeah, it is very unfortunate. It is only for the commercial transactions. So in order for the law to be a good law, it has to cover everyone, including the government. So in Malaysia, they are looking forward to this and see how the data in the government sector can be further secured and enhanced. That is all from me, and thank you. What I can say is data protection is about accountability, and Allah said, do not follow that of which you have no knowledge. Surely the hearing, the sight, the heart, each of these shall be called into account. So the way that we process personal information, the way we disseminate the personal data to people, all will be taken into account. Yeah, so that is what I can say for today. Thank you for all the attention given, and should there be any questions, I shall welcome the questions. And thank you again for having me. And for your information, you can get this slide from my blog, from my website, sonizulhuda.com. Please visit the website in order to download the slide of today. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dr. Dodik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Just let me summarize. Thank you very much, Professor Soni, for the wonderful explanation related to the immigration data and its protection and its challenges in Malaysia. And let me summarize in bahasa Indonesia. Jadi menurut Pak Soni ternyata data imigrasi itu memiliki banyak sekali fungsi. Beberapa di antaranya seperti terkait dengan ekonomi kesejahteraan masyarakat. Karena semakin banyak orang asing masuk ke Indonesia berinvestasi, itu berarti juga meningkatkan kesejahteraan kita. Di satu sisi juga sebagai bagian dari penegakan hukum, siapa tahu ada orang asing yang melakukan tindakan terorisme dan lain sebagainya, maka perlu juga ada pengelolaan data yang baik sehingga mungkin penegak hukum kita seperti polisi, petugas imigrasi, dan juga mungkin jaksa dan lain sebagainya, mereka langsung bisa mendapatkan data informasi terkait pelakunya dengan sangat cepat dan mereka bisa segera menangkap dan mengetahui posisi mereka berada di mana. Dan kemudian Malaysia juga ternyata memiliki beberapa undang-undang dan kita jauh ketertinggal. Di Malaysia sudah memiliki Undang-Undang Perlindungan Data Pribadi sejak tahun 2010 dan dalam perkembangannya juga di beberapa perundang-undangan lain di Malaysia juga sudah mengatur terkait tindak pidana bagaimana ketika melakukan pelanggaran data dan kemudian bocornya data dan lain sebagainya. Dan kemudian Malaysia juga ternyata sangat aware, bahkan undang-undang ini sudah mulai di-challenge oleh beberapa orang yang ada di Malaysia yang merasa dirugikan, mereka bawa ke pengadilan di Malaysia. Seperti yang terakhir tadi disampaikan oleh Pak Soni, ada 2 kasus di Malaysia. Yang pertama kasusnya Pak Abdul Wahab tadi, yang datanya juga sempat bocor, data privacy-nya, dan menggugat Malaysia. Dan di situ pengadilan juga memberikan beberapa isu yang dibahas bahwa ternyata budaya orang Malaysia itu tidak suka datanya disebar. Saya juga membayangkan ini tadi disampaikan Pak Soni, ada gambar manusia tadi, ada datafication. Saya jadi heran, mungkin istri saya, pacar Anda, itu mungkin kalau dibandingkan dengan Google, itu jauh lebih mengerti dan mengenal Google daripada pacar atau istri saya. Saya nggak punya pacar, saya punya istri itu ya. Anda kan punya pacar itu kan. Nah pasti jauh lebih, kalau dibandingin dengan Google, pasti Google jauh lebih mengenal. Karena apa? Google hari ini tahu Anda sedang posting status sedih atau senang. Google hari ini tahu di mana lokasi Anda saat ini, karena telepon Anda ini terkoneksi dengan GPS, ada penginderaan jauh, ada terkoneksi dengan satelit. Google juga tahu hari ini Anda makan apa, Anda order makanan apa, atau lagi berangkat kemana, itu juga tahu mereka. Dan Google bahkan juga tahu sampai detail di mana apa kita berkirim pesan dengan siapa gitu kan. Bahkan Google juga tahu apa yang kita sedang cari hari ini lewat mesin pencari Google. Apakah Anda mencari terjemahan apa atau Anda mencari informasi terkait apa begitu. Jadi Google itu jauh lebih mengerti daripada pasangan kita masing-masing. Jadi ini sangat berbahaya sekali. Kalau mengertinya untuk menyayangi kita kan nggak apa-apa gitu ya. Tapi ternyata di dalam praktek perkembangannya ada juga yang mereka menyalahgunakan atau misuse the data. Dan bahkan tadi di Jerman ada seorang polisi di Jerman karena dia males gitu ya nyari informasi nomor kontak temennya. Karena dia seorang polisi, akhirnya dia buka sistem keamanan polisi, kemudian dicari nama temennya siapa gitu, terus kemudian dia telepon temennya kaget loh, kamu kok tahu nomor saya dari mana? Dari sistem kepolisian, digugat itu akhirnya dan diberi denda di Jerman. Jadi ini luar biasa. Saat ini privasi itu sangat dijaga sekali di beberapa negara, tetapi ternyata di Indonesia undang-undangnya saja masih jauh tertinggal. Tadi sudah disampaikan Bu Rina. And I think we still have one more speaker, and she is offline now. So would you like to use this remote, or should I help you to organize the PPT? Okay, I can help you. Okay, they are sharing the. Okay, do you need the remote or do they help you? Okay, they will help you. Okay, or maybe I will help you. It's fine because it's far away from there. Okay, Professor Park will speaking about the immigration data in South Korea and what is the challenges and rules of immigration data. And I think this will be as part of our comparative perspective. Jadi saya berharap hari ini kita bisa mengetahui, oh Indonesia itu kekurangannya di sini. Oh ternyata Malaysia sudah jauh melesat. Oh kemudian di Amerika Serikat sudah seperti itu. Nah bagaimana dengan Korea Selatan yang ternyata di sana kita tahu negaranya negara industrialisasi, ekonominya baik, dan bagaimana mereka mempersepsikan data ini seperti apa. Okay, so 25 minutes for you to present your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the, America, Malaysia, Indonesia, all policies are here. And we can compare those policies together to have a better policy for international community. Because border is not a border anymore. We can move around. We can live in Indonesia for 6 months. We can live in Korea 6 months. We can live in anywhere in 6 months. The border is not a border, previous border in history. We have to think about what it means by border. And in terms of that, we are going to share the immigration policy of Korea too. Okay, let me go to the next page. The immigration system in Korea and the issue of its data protection is the topic for today. And we can pass 2 pages, please. And we go to the trend of immigration Korea. Now, the trend of immigration in Korea has started 1980, which is not far from now. So what time at 1980, what happened was that there was a shortage of domestic workers. So we needed a person to work, and it led to invitation to many other countries, and they come over to work at the Korea. And 10 years later, in 1991, Gulf War were over, and infrastructure in the Middle East, the building, the construction was almost over. So there are many people hesitating to go back to their country. They moved to Korea. So flow of people came to Korea in 1991. In 2000, which is 10 years later, what happened is then domestically, the Korean Korean males started to get married to different nationalities, especially Chinese, Vietnamese, and those are the nationalities are more into Korea now. And now in 2020, actually the 2.1% is multicultural families, and newborn, if you see the number, almost 6% of newborn is a multicultural family in Korea now. It's quite an increase because Korea, if you have one child, you have to spend 3 million. So we have to have 3 million to have one baby. So you cannot have two. If you are rich, you can have two, but not more than one. So that's the amount of money you have to spend to have one baby. However, the multicultural families, they don't consider that investment to human is necessary. Love is everything, right? So now we have many newborns having settled in Korea, but increase of a baby is really the problem in Korea. So this is a trend why Korea has needed the foreign enforcement and people from abroad. It's a different the cause of it for every 10 years. Okay, and we move to next slide. So immigration and immigration together, there are two concepts, coming in and going out. So I was taking the sense of from the presentation of speakers today. United States, it seems like they are having policies in terms of taking care of immigration from abroad, right? And also the Malaysian part, Malaysia is both. I will ask these questions later to the speaker, whether they have a set of policies in terms of immigrating or receiving forces or sending out forces. So from the perspective in Korea, we consider Indonesia as a sending out country. But as I was having discussion with the immigration officers in Indonesia, the policy has been set up from the perspective of immigration purpose, of protecting Indonesians from other countries' forces. So that perspective is really setting up different policies, but Korea is setting up policies in terms of receiving the foreigners. The policy has started quite late. Although I had explained 1980, 1990, 2001, right? But the law has started actually in 2007. So status of foreigner in Korea law is the starting point that we started to have a more systematic policies. It started 2008 to 5 years, and then 2012 and 2017. And now is a third policy enforcement, and which is started 2018 and now come to the 2022. So from next year, we'll have a fourth generation of a new immigration policy. So we are now researching on the effect of third policy. Going to the next slide. Okay, so we have saw that now Korea is at the third stage of setting up the policy. You know, immigration is a part of the strange law that when the president changes, immigration law changes. Not other laws changes according to the preference of the president, but immigration law is integrated into the political party. So it is a really not stable and changeable field. It's quite special. So you have to consider whether immigration policy towards the international society will be the stable or not. The speakers from United States already mentioned that it is unstable, and it is the same in Korea, but we try to have the similar trend every 5 years, but the policy changes every 5 years like America. So now the vision of immigration policy has 5 pillars. Integration is at the center, but Korea wants to have a safe country. That's the goal. That we can invite many foreigners. Also, we can have a safe country as we are. But between them, coexistence and collaboration is there. At the bottom, there is a human rights. So 5 pillars are here to have a more immigration business to be polished. Go to the next slide. And with 5-pillar vision, we have 14 ministries that are related to the function of the immigration, and 10 major ministries are related to the immigration methods. As you can see, there are so many government entities relating to the immigration matters now. Before, because we didn't have anybody from abroad, we didn't have to have any ministry, but now those entities, they have to work on the policy relating to the immigration. Okay, next. Okay, what do you think this picture is? What do you think? This is a map of a population in Korea. You see the mountain shape? It's a decreasing. The population is decreasing at the point of 2017. Actually, the point was 15, but hike was 17, and then dramatically the population is decreasing. We don't have babies. And the colors of these locals, you see it here, the green one used to be the capital city, but not even capital city is decreasing in population. They move out and the population is decreasing. If you see the red ones, not many people live there anymore. So only the small people live there, and that's the what we call it, disappearance of a local area. And that will not have any population living in that local. So this is the concern of the Korean government. Because of this decrease of population, Korean government has changed the policy to have a more collaboration and more invitation to foreign students, foreign workers, or those. Going to the next page. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can go down. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So here is the, if you see on the right side, there's a permanent residence sex distribution. And the foreigners at the left side, the 57.1% is male and 42.9%, 42.9% is a woman. And on the right side is they are changing the nationality. The male side is 17.6%, but female change of the nationality is 82.4%. So at the end, if you think about, if you invest your budget, national budget, to whom? And the people who are going to live in Korea will be more likely to women than men, right? So the policy, according to this data, they are changing the policy. Here, the first one is number. The people in Korea wanted to have a quantity increase at first. And then now 2018, we have changed it to quantity with the quality. And the social integration also has changed it to those for the long stay and immigrations all together. And human resources, first they had only invited people, but now the Korean government policy is more integrated into those got the invitation, want to stay in Korea and have a productive life in Korea too. Okay, going to the next page, please. Yeah. So in terms of immigration perspective, this is a budget you're investing. So the first priority is a citizen, and second is a secondary generation and third generation of the citizen, and third portion is a foreigner, and they divided permanent resident, marriage, refugee, Korean abroad, foreign student, foreign company workers, professional manpower, and simple manpower. So they have all the categories that they are going to invest how much and where. Okay, next slide goes to. So this is investment plan. So you have to check the budget to see whether the politicians are actually saying the truth or not. So I always check the budget whether they really mean it or not. The budget here is says for the sectors here. There are 5 categories. One, I cannot see there from, but the 5 categories in terms of immigration. Openness means the invitation to others. They spend the most money and the budget. And second part is integration. They pour some of the budget to make people integrate into Korea. And third one is a safety. And fourth one is human rights. And fifth one is a cooperation and collaboration. So what they are more interested in is invitation to foreign people. That's an invitation. Yeah, that's a budget that Korean government is spending. So next, please. Yeah. So here, this table, I got it from the immigration officer. And he said he has 10 categories in terms of border control. First one is a visa, second is a border control, third one is stay, fourth one is control, fifth one is nationality, 6 ID, 7 integration, 8 protection, 9 relations, special relations, 10th is important, but I cannot see here. The 10th one is information. So how do they control the information is our topic today. So 10th one on the line 10th is the information. It seems like if the category is up there, it means important. But at the bottom of it, they don't consider, immigration officers in Korea don't consider information as really important to protect it, but they consider it is necessary to know. Next, please. Yeah. For the, in terms of data protection and as a human concern, this is a new development we have. And I will always envy that America has a special rule. If you are illegal, even if you are illegal in America, you can get education without afraid of your teacher telling police that you are illegal alien. But here comes to the Korea, the same regulation. They gave us 3 exemptions on the human rights concern. First one is school education. If the teacher find out you are illegal alien, should the teacher have to give notice to the police? No, they don't have to. They have an exemption. Second one is, if you are sick and go to the hospital and they found out you don't have any residence record, and which means that you are illegal, but they don't have to inform it. It's exempt. Third one is, if you are a criminal victim, that also is exempt to notice. This is a really big big step for country to take, because they give a big exemption to not to notice to the police officer. Even if police officer find out the victim of the criminal is illegal alien, they will not charge anything for this criminal activity, and all the cases over, they will not do anything. So this is a really big step for the Korean government in terms of human concern. Next, please. Yeah, and now comes to just before, I think, yeah. Before. Going down. Next. Yeah. Next. Yeah. Going back. Yeah. Okay. And then next page. Yeah. Yeah. So now when you come to Korea, you like idol or you like K-pop stars, and you want to come to Korea then. I come to Indonesia, and I can expect these are the information I have given to them. So these 9 categories of information immigration officers collect. Name, sex, date of birth, nationality is one category. Second one is passport number and issuance date and expiration date. Third category is a position and function at workplace. And fourth one is address at home and domestic. And fifth one is a visa status and duration. And sixth one is entrance date and port where you've been. And 7 is a visa status. And 8th one is companion. 9th one is business registration number. So these are the information being collected that we are going to talk about it today as a data. But in terms of immigration law enforcement, the age is not the 18 or 19. The age is 17 in Korea. So if you are turning into 17 years old, the 90 days before, you have to have a bio-info register. So all the thumbnails and face recognition, they must have it before turning into 17. Next page, please. Thank you. So this is a facial recognition. Have you seen this machine in Indonesia? No, right? Yeah, this is how they collect your facial recognition bio-info on street. This is I got it from Netflix. This is in UK. So at one point, camera is collecting your face information, but the other side of it, people are handing it out that this street now is collecting bio info. You can go other street to not to be collected. So there are 2 sides of it, being collected, not to be collected. Okay. And next page. And these are the informations that human action recognition is given. So zone, intrusion, and direction detector, maybe someone is wandering around. Those are also the actions to be recognized as a strange. And next page, please. Yeah. And behavior recognition, maybe you are about to commit suicide, AI already knows. So gesture recognition is another technology being now developed. And next page is emotional recognition. How many emoticons do you use when you have a texting? So they, according to the emoticons you use, they kind of analyze your emotion. Also, they can, of course, analyze voice, body language, and eye tracking. So they know what you are thinking and what your emotion is, according to your emoticon. Yeah. Next, please. So did you know that Dubai airport is the first walking through in the world, taking all the information? You don't have to submit it. They already know what you are and who you are. So recognition technology at the airport and immigration is here. And you all may have used it to go to Surabaya or Jakarta or other places, right? So going to the next page. Yeah, and the Dubai technology has developed, and until now, the technology is being developed every second. Going to the next page. And now you have a body scan. And I'm kind of surprised that this time I come to Indonesia, I had to also have a body scan. What's inside of my body, they all know. And it feels like a strange, but now body scan is here. Okay, going to the next page. Yeah. So here is the latest technology that you compare. The officers usually compare passport to the scanners, right? But what we don't see is that the CCTV all around in an airport, they compare data from what you have submitted. So until they find the match, even if you pass the border, they continuously check your face. And until they find the 99% 9 match, they will not stop scanning your face. So everybody is being scanned by percentage. You are 5% matched person, you are 2% matching person. So we are the percentage according to the AI. Okay. So next page, please. So what we have to consider is that what kind of data we are talking about is that if you see the the woman here, you can recognize first woman easy. But in the middle, you kind of beg who the person is. At the last part, maybe I don't know who the person is exactly. So what they are doing is they are making vague information from very clear information. So in the middle, there is called pseudonymized information. And the last one is unanimous information. So they are making vague. At the last part of it, it is not protected. So what is being protected is first part and the portion of the middle information. Okay, going to the next page. So the important thing is only identifiable personal data is being protected here, and we have to know which one we are talking about. We have talked about data altogether, but we have to categorize what kind of data we are talking about And first one is fully clear. Second one is pseudonymous. And third one is unanimous. We don't consider unanimous information as a protection worthy. The only one and second category is the information we need to protect. And you can pass to the next page. And here, in terms of that, the case came out that here it says, information you have given to the immigration officer, is it the personal information? That was the case handled, and the result came out. The legal analysis considering all the factors surrounding the one person to process during the immigration process is considered to be not a personal information in this case. So that's not protection worthy. That was the case before. The case changes accordingly through the different time zone. Next page. And second case in 2014 still says it is preparation to make a decision on the immigration matter is still important, but not protection worthy, right? Still until 2014, efficient control of the border control is important. Going to the next page. What was it? Okay, so going to the next page first, yeah. And now in 2022, in UK case, finally said that if you want to have data protection and exemption in terms of immigration, you need to have a clear law. Otherwise, you cannot make exemption big. In 2022, many things have changed in a way to data protection is protection worthy. Rather, although the border control is important, data protection is becomes more important matter than before, right? And going back to the upper page, up, just one up, yeah. You know what this is? This one is the error, and he is the. This one is from also Netflix, and here it says lawmakers. He's a lawmaker, a parliament member, and 28 lawmakers with mugshot of people who has been arrested. The AI recognized him as a criminal. A criminal. Although he is a lawmaker, AI does not properly recognize the person as the lawmaker. Because his skin is dark, AI made a decision that he is criminal. That was the comment by the Netflix at the time. So she also mentioned that we saw this algorithm are effective to different degrees. The algorithm is already making discriminatory judgment. That is the problem of AI too. So going back to the 2 pages down. So there is a code. We have to adopt called the privacy impact assessment, which is called the PIA. And this is a standard and criteria. You can enforce it to keep the balance. First one is characterization of the information. We categorize information into 3, right? So here, for example, what information is being collected, used, disseminated, and maintained in the system? You have to ask when you collect it. Second one is what are the sources of information in the system? You also have to ask. And third one is why the information being collected? These are the all informations you have to ask. So when you consider, do I have to have a privacy impact assessment test used to collect information? First one is a characterization of the information. And going to the second page, next page. And the second category you have to think about is the use of information. And here, what type of tools are used to analyze data and what type of data may be produced. So how you are going to use information is also part of a PIA. And going to the third part, and third one is a retention. And what information is being retained and how long is going to be retained. So during the COVID, you submitted information, right? And do anybody know how long your government is going to be keeping your data? When you enter the restaurant, you all filled out the forms, right? Yeah. In Korea, it's a 6 months, and they are written here that after 6 months, all of the information collected in this restaurant will be discarded. So this retention period should be noticed to the person who are being collected, right? So this retention is important. Fourth one is internal sharing and disclosure. You never know who is going to use this information. So internally, you have to keep it very carefully about the information people have. And going to the next page. And internally and next time is externally. When you share information to a third party, that's another criteria you have to keep in mind. And going to the next page. Next page. It's a notice. It's a number 6 going up. Yeah, notice. Was a notice provided to the individual prior to the collection? That is the question that I asked before. So have you gotten any information before you are giving information to the person? So this notice part is also very important. 7 is the next page, is access, redress, and correction. If they know you are you, that's okay, but there are sometimes error happen in an algorithm, then they think you are the different person. And what if there's a mistake happening in the information? How are you going to correct it? That is also important part of a PIA. So privacy impact assessment, you have to consider these 5 questions together to make correct criteria. And next one, number 8. As a technical access and security, if you just look at the final ones, PIA, given the sensitivity and scope of the information collected, as well as information sharing conducted on the system, what privacy risks are identified, how do the security control mitigate them? So this is the information, and you have to question yourself whether any mitigation action has been taken when you collect information in terms of immigration, of course. Okay. The last one is technology, and we saw that algorithm is not working properly yet. I heard that Amazon has more than 30% error rate in terms of algorithm. So IBM also has a problem of setting up the percentage correct. So those technologies are still developing. We cannot trust algorithm 100%. So this privacy impact assessment should also include the development of a technology. So the last page is the summary. So here, I like to think during the movement between 2 borders, many data are being collected. You have to remember. And second, this is based on the domestic policy according to the international law called sovereignty. You know very well in the international law what is sovereignty. And number 3 is, however, IT technology is not yet advanced to make a full judgment. So we have to think about technology as it is now, but we are going to have a better one. Number 4, having known the acknowledge that data outcome is not 100% correct, there is a human error also. in terms of there is a technology error, there's also human error. Number 5, exemption clause must be carefully crafted when you give immigration exemption. So at that time, please consider privacy impact assessment test to have it enforced properly. So you have to know what kind of information is being collected and what kind of mitigation method has been enforced in every country. So this is the policy now the Korea is enforcing, and also the technology and also concerns of the Korean government in terms of immigration and data. Thank you. And this is my university. It's hard to climb up. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Or in Korean say Hamsahamida, ya, atau in bahasa Jawa matur nuwun gitu nggih. Ya. Bapak Ibu sekalian dan saudara yang saya hormati, izinkan saya memberikan summarize ringkasan terkait dengan apa yang tadi disampaikan oleh Profesor Park. Ternyata di Korea Selatan itu telah terjadi penurunan jumlah penduduk. Tetapi di saat yang bersamaan ada juga kenaikan terkait dengan arus orang asing yang masuk ke Korea Selatan. Jadi ya mungkin karena pariwisatanya, kita juga kemarin baru saja ngirim mahasiswa, sejumlah 5 mahasiswa untuk belajar di Korea Selatan. Jadi itu juga menambah keberadaan jumlah orang asing yang tinggal di Korea Selatan. Dan ternyata di Korea Selatan sudah sangat canggih sekali kalau tadi Google gitu ya, yang mengetahui data dari informasi yang kita gunakan pada saat kita mengakses layanan Google. Tetapi di Korea Selatan mereka sudah menggunakan teknologi yang jauh lebih canggih sehingga ada kamera atau CCTV yang ditaruh di mungkin tempat-tempat publik, kalau tadi di bandara, yang mungkin bisa langsung mendeteksi siapa orang yang lewat, namanya siapa, dan kalau namanya ini diklik, mungkin langsung muncul personal information kita. Saya kira Fakultas Hukum UI perlu beli ini Pak Dekan. Ya, untuk mahasiswa yang ngeyel-ngeyel ini perlu juga dideteksi dengan kamera gitu ya, biar kita tahu mereka lari kemana, sembunyi di mana gitu. Jadi memang butuh sekali kita kamera ini. Dan itu sangat canggih sekali sehingga karena bisa mendeteksi, bahkan mendeteksinya tidak hanya wajah kita, siapa informasi kita, bahkan bisa mendeteksi perilaku kita. Misalnya saja tadi bisa menangkap, tadi ada juga sekarang sudah mulai banyak, ini saya juga barusan beli satu, kalau bayi nangis, itu bisa dideteksi dan di HP bisa ada motion detection gitu ya. Your baby is crying gitu ya. Nah, kalau misalnya bayi saya ada di depan rumah itu, saya sedang masak di belakang, HP saya langsung muncul bunyi bayi Anda sedang menangis seperti itu. Dan perilaku ini juga sudah mulai digunakan karena tidak hanya teknologi tetapi Korea Selatan juga sudah mengembangkan kecerdasan buatan sehingga bisa mendeteksi perilaku-perilaku yang akan terjadi, mungkin apakah orang ini akan melakukan tindakan terorisme atau tindakan-tindakan yang mencurigakan. Jadi teknologinya sudah mulai sangat canggih sekali. Dan tadi memang perkembangannya tadi tidak hanya kamera tapi juga ada body scanning. Jadi kalau Google hanya tahu informasi mungkin seputar apa yang kita sampaikan ke mereka, lah ini informasinya sudah sangat privacy sekali. Mungkin petugas bandara tahu itu size celana saya berapa gitu ya, size kaos saya berapa gitu ya, karena kita di scanning full atas bawah, kanan, kiri, depan, belakang. Jadi mereka tahu betul-betul kondisi fisik kita, bahkan sampai ke sidik jari, sampai ke retina, mata retina, sampai ke face recognition. Itu yang terjadi perkembangannya di sana. Sehingga memang perlu sekali diatur. Kalau sampai bayangkan mereka tahu ya, kalau Anda tahu size sepatu saya, Anda ngasih sepatu saya nggak apa-apa. Nah kalau disalahgunakan ini yang jadi masalah gitu ya. Atau mungkin menjadi bahan bulian atau apalah yang lain sebagainya, itu yang menjadi masalah hukum. Sehingga kemudian tadi Profesor Park menyampaikan di akhir slide-nya, perlu ada privacy impact assessment. Saya kira ini bagus sekali ini. Jadi bagaimana mengendalikan atau mengevaluasi dampak dari penggunaan atau pengoleksian data privacy kita. Jadi perlu ada semacam mungkin komisi atau mungkin pihak ketiga atau pemerintah yang mungkin mengevaluasi setiap pengumpul, pengolah dan juga pemroduksi data ini untuk bisa melakukan privacy impact assessment. Tadi ada sekitar 9, mulai dari data yang digunakan apa, berapa lama data kita gunakan, siapa pihak eksternal yang bisa menggunakan, dan kemudian bagaimana teknis akses untuk bisa mengakses data. Itu semua harus diatur sedemikian rupa sehingga bisa menjamin perlindungan data kita. Saya kira tidak perlu lama-lama. Without further ado and taking longer time, I think this is the time for you to for Q&A. Since we already break the time, I think we will only have 15 minutes for Q&A. So please, if you have any questions, just raise your hands. Jadi silahkan kalau ada bertanya, angkat tangan. Jangan khawatir, ini sesinya bahasa Inggris memang. Tapi kalau Anda mau menyampaikan dalam bahasa Indonesia, saya siap mentranslasikan dalam bahasa Inggris. Jadi jangan takut untuk bertanya. Saya persilahkan dan mohon disebutkan nama kalau dari luar UI, asal institusinya, dan yang kedua mungkin bisa menyebutkan kalau mahasiswa dari angkatan atau kelas atau mungkin nomor mahasiswa berapa. Saya persilahkan Bapak ini, kemudian 1, mungkin 4 sekalian ya, nggak apa-apa, kita kumpulkan. Silahkan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ya, di situ aja bis, nggak apa-apa. Oke, di depan juga boleh, ya, biar kelihatan gantengnya. Ya.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Shabil Bayaki. I'm from Faculty of Law, International Program 21. I have a question to Professor Ji-hyun. So, if there's an illegal immigrant in South Korea, for example, like North Korean defectors, will they be granted the citizenship by the South Korean government?
Can you speak very slowly?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me repeat the question. Yeah. So, if there's an illegal immigrant like North Korean defectors in South Korea, will they be granted the citizenship by the South Korean government? And will there be any issues between the South Korean government and the North Korean government? That's my question. Yeah.
I think we will collect the questions first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terima
Thank
kasih.
you.
Syabil ya namanya.
Yeah.
Oke, ya. Terima kasih. Ya. The next question silahkan. Mas ini ya. Ini mahasiswa saya ini. Ya, oke.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
First of all, my name is Muhammad Haris and I'm on my 4th semester, second year. My question is kind of easy, to be honest. So how would the South Korean immigration government react to the North Korean defector? Will the South Korean government protect the individual from the North Korean government if the individual itself doesn't want to go back to their own respective country? Some of the motive or the defectors maybe include they wanted the freedom that they doesn't have in North Korea.
I think almost same question about the movement of North Koreans to South Korean. The border control.
Yes,
from
the North Korean defectors.
What kind of actions gitu kan? Kalau ada orang Korea Utara masuk Korea Selatan, actions apa gitu yang bisa dilakukan oleh orang Korea Selatan? Ya, ini
semacam reaksi pemerintahan Korea Selatan itu gimana itu? Dari orang-orang yang, gimana reaksi pemerintahan Korea Selatan itu terhadap orang-orang yang defector dari North Korea gitu?
Okay. So, what is the response of the South Korean government related to the existence of North Koreans in your country, in your territory? We still have 2. Silahkan belakang ini, Mas Haris bisa dipindahkan. Ya. Oh sudah ada. Ya, 2 nggak apa-apa. Ya, bisa nyanyi bareng nanti. 2.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elza Farika Aquina.
Yeah.
I'm from batch 2020 of the Faculty of Law International Program. So I want to ask a questions, short of my knowledge, and I do my research about the data protection and data privacy that data protection in the migration context has become increasingly relevant given the growing need for more reliable statics, comprehensive and timely data, and the emergence of new technologies. And there are many incidents of like data theft, data loss, and unauthorized access. So what we concern in the present time here is the emergence of new technologies of sources of data such as social media, mobile phone data, and also artificial intelligence or AI. Today, we see data growth at an unprecedented pace, and this has both opportunities for improved migration and policy making, as well as risk for personal privacy and security. But the personal data protection and security is still considered ineffective since the implementation.
Can you make it short and simple because we only have limited time?
Okay.
Just directly to the questions.
Okay, right. So my question here is how to effectively implement data protection and privacy safeguard policy relevant to the development of new technologies in the present time. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, you do not specify the countries, but I will select some of the other speakers so we can distribute the questions. Okay. We still have one last question. Okay, silakan.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saptika Nandavia, and I'm currently studying in law at Islamic University, class of 2020. I addressed this question to Prof. Jaehyun. Since I've been into Hallyu or Korean thingy since I was a kid, I do some research and digging some information about South Korea. As long as I know, in 2018, there was Yemenis asylum entered Jeju Island, and it sparked the first series of organized anti-immigrant protests in South Korea. Even the Human Rights Watch in New York has criticized the strict policies about immigrants in South Korea. And the second one, if we talk about the anti-discrimination bill in South Korea, from what I know, it's still stuck or stalled in parliament from years. Therefore, till now, South Korea has no comprehensive anti-discrimination law. So my question is, with the new selected president, Mr. Yoon Suk-yeol, how is the progression of the anti-discrimination? And with several anti-immigrant and discrimination cases that I mentioned before, I would like to ask your idea or perspective about what is the best action or policies to decreasing this case, because I've heard from my Korean friends, this discrimination case happened because many Korean people, especially the elders, still emphasize and believe that the importance of ethnic homogeneity and their pure blood. Thank you.
Mbak siapa tadi namanya?
Septika.
Septika. Okay, so the last question is more about political issues. Okay, anti-discrimination and so on. Okay, before you answer the questions, I will. Okay, which one?
In terms of the policy perspective, I have question to professors, to all. Sony Juluda, Professor Christopher Kayson, and also Rina Shaolini, whether each country is having perspective of sending out forces perspective, or they are receiving forces from other countries. So immigration policy has a two perspective. So I want to know whether each country has those different policies.
Okay, since Pak Sony already texted me that he has to focus on his meeting, but he's on his way to reach his phone, I think I will call him after this. But we have two speakers already. The camera is on. So Pak Chris and also Ibu Rina, I have questions for you. So the two questions is, I think the first question is more about how to respond the data protection law with relates to the development of new technology, because you know the law and technology, the law can be stable, static, but you know the technology development is dynamic. So how to make it balance? I think this is the question. And then the second one, I think the question is from the speaker, Professor Park. how would you concern about the transfer of immigration data outside the government, outside the state, right? And also inside the territory of your country? Is there any differences, different policies, different regime of protection? I think that's your question, right? Yeah. Okay. So I think I will let you to answer the question, but Chris first, I think. Yeah, it's almost midnight at your time. I'm so sorry.
Okay. So thank you for your questions. First of all, I'll try to briefly address data privacy in the U.S. There isn't a comprehensive data privacy act or data privacy law for the entire country. 3 of our states, mine not included, have California, Colorado, and Virginia have comprehensive data privacy laws, which would cover immigration data as well. But on the federal level, each of different laws have their own data privacy, from our healthcare privacy law, our financial privacy laws, etc. But none of those really covers immigration privacy. So there is a movement to try for a national data privacy law or data protection law, but we don't have that on a national level yet. So I guess the short answer is no, we don't have that. The second part of the question,
excuse me, so you only have the federal law on data protection. So it means that all states, all states have different policy on data protection.
That's correct.
Okay. Do you have any information which state has the worst part of data protection in practice? Just for example, I think, yeah, because this is really important information for us.
Well, with regard to immigration is done on a federal level. So there's very little state protection for immigration data. But I would say Texas, Alabama, those have there's been no movement for a comprehensive data protection law at all. Most states are in the process of trying to push for comprehensive data regulation, and there are various stages of the legislative process in that. So the worst, it doesn't really matter because most of the data is protected across state lines, but it depends on which state you are a resident of.
Okay. Okay, so how about the next question is about the data transfer. Is there any different policy system, regime, or regulations in sending the data out, or maybe outside the country or within the country?
Yeah, of course, if I understand the question correctly, as a sending country, we're much more careful than because it's protective of our citizens, but there's no, that's done on a State Department level, where data is offered through treaty or through diplomatic channels in transferring, giving data and sharing data. It's, of course, with criminal data, it's shared quite widely through Interpol, etc. However, it's very limited. And of course, our protection for immigrants coming into the country is less because the immigration policy is that we want to find out as much information as possible about individuals entering the country. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
I think, that's good. Okay, so thank you. I think the next would be Bu Rina. So you will answer for the same questions. For the first is more about how to catch, because since Indonesia doesn't have comprehensive data protection and how should we respond to the development of the technology? And the second one, do we have specific technical guidelines or maybe any specific regulations or maybe ethical guidelines related to the data transfer outside the country and within the country? Yeah, I think you need to unmute yourself. Purina, bisa di-unmute?
Yeah, okay, right. Okay, now it's unmuted because I think it's centralized. The unmute is saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Okay, right. So if we talk about the personal data protection, as Prof. Budi mentioned it earlier in the keynote speaker, it's still the law, it's still under process, and then it's still debating between the government and then the legislative. And well, it's already put it in the Badan Legislasi, but then because of the different views from the government and then the representative, the people representative, the DPR, so it's still pending. Hopefully we can have the data protection law sooner, but it doesn't mean that data protection is not protected in Indonesia. There's no protection at all in Indonesia. We have our ITE law, yeah, okay, and then other laws also actually protect the data. But in particular, if we would like to see the specific law concerning the data protection, I think it's at the moment, it's in the law 11 number 28, which is junto to, in connection with the amendment, it's the law number 19 of 26 on electronic information and transaction. But if we look at it from the immigration, how is actually the data is protected, as I mentioned that the management, the immigration management, they have the system, they call it SIMKIM. Okay, so it's special for immigration information system and management, the SIMKIM, which has 12 application and it's well protected. And if there's something wrong, it's actually there's they call it DRC, Disaster Recovery Center, which is in Bali and in Kepulauan Riau, which is I live. It's under the Kepulauan Riau Islands province. So the thing is the data itself. Okay, it's not. I cannot say it's well maintained, but they're trying to protect. If the data from the immigration sites leak to other irresponsible persons. But the question is now, who owns the data? It's quite a debate here. Who owns the data? Even the immigration is actually in SIMKIM, is the leading sectors. But when the other stakeholders, in particular from the government, asking for the data from the immigration, and then they have to provide all those. Okay, for the for the second questions, okay, the immigration law of Indonesia is actually, when we say immigration, of course, we will focus it more on the foreigners coming to Indonesia. But of course, we also focus both, okay, the immigration and immigration. But if we look at it, the law number 6 of 2011 focuses more on the foreigners coming or enter to Indonesia. But those who are going out from Indonesia to work or other purposes, there are other laws, you know, job creation law and other policies of BP2MI, you know, there are other stakeholders and then the policies regarding that. But whether the data, okay, the data which is gathered by the immigration office, for example, can be transferred easily overseas, the question is not that easy, because still the protections of the nationals, Indonesian nationals, in particular Indonesian nationals, except if those nationals can be, you know, we have what we call it in ASEAN and mutual legal assistance. If that person is suspected already and there is a coordination between the Kapolri, okay, between the head of the national police in foreign police and then the Indonesian police, and then they ask for the data because that person is actually suspected as a criminal, conducted a criminal, actions overseas. So, but this is under the mutual legal assistance, and we have in ASEAN already, so there's a coordination. But my answer to the second question is not very easy to give the personal data, okay, from Indonesian nationals or even foreign nationals, which is collected to other, stakeholders or to other entities in other countries, except if there is, a proof, the evidence that that person is actually conducted, crimes, which is threat mostly the international community, other countries, and that it should be through the mutual legal assistance. That's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Burina. And I think the last question is for you, because since Pak Soni is not responding to my message, but he sent me last time, maybe he will answer the text because he's now have to conclude the meeting. So you can answer the questions, Prof.
Okay, for the North Korean the questions, I think because of the Korean drama 사랑의 불시착, is that the man in North Korea had fallen in love with a woman in South Korea? Is that because of that drama? But the question, to answer the question, basically there is an institution called the Hanawan, and this is a place where they take care of those Korean people coming down. And basically, we are only thinking about coming down, not going up. So when they come down, they have protection to provide, and they let the people come to the Hanawan, and they ask same questions every day. And the North Korean people have to write down how they got in and what was their plan, and every day. If you are lying, you cannot write down the same thing every day. And if you are, it's true, then you are writing down the same thing. That's the test Hanawan does. So that's how they consider and find out the person is whether with a different intention or not. And after they stay in 6 months, then they let the people go out with a monetary subsidy, and they can stay in a local and any place they choose. And usually they have a community in its local area, so they can survive with that. And also going up, we don't consider the South Korea people will go up, but they happen to be the cases. Those South Korean people usually don't have proper information given by the government either. So we are not in the position of knowing those informations clearly. But however, if there is a case, there is the military service, they guard those people, to block them to go up. But there has been the incident that they go up, and what we know is they are staying there well, yeah, depending on their intention. I think why they have to maybe do a good thing for the North Korea. They have to contribute something to the North Korea. And about the technology, there is also the WTO law says you have to adopt the latest technology as possible into the judgment. It's the same judgment can be adopted to this data protection plus technology. Technology is not perfect, but up to the recent date, if you adopt and use technology as recent as possible, that's the maximum criteria we can adopt. Yeah, and also PIA test is a good criteria. We can keep the balance between IT technology advancement and error of the algorithm and technology. And also for the discrimination, Korea is not a really good place to be as a woman. If you consider the law professor who is a female in Korea, in total, you can count them. You can count the woman professor in law faculty. It's a very rare. And you can find many women professor in children education. They're all women, but law faculty, you can count them. So what we are having is anti-discrimination law is not there, but in opposite, there is a gender equality law is there. So using that gender equality law, what they are doing is that they are putting one woman in every committee as possible. And they are allocating woman professor for the public universities since this year. They have to hire the woman professor mandatory. And then males, they're arguing that this is also the discrimination. But up to now, if you go elementary school in Korea, you don't see male teacher. It's hard to find male teacher in elementary school. Then again, you can hard to find woman professor in high, up to the university. So it's going from, because the teachers are usually taking exam. The females are very good at taking exams. They take the jobs at there. And if there's no jobs, just competition according to the interview, those things, male dominations are there. So it depending on the job area, I think. So we use the gender equality law for the, meanwhile, yeah, I hope this is I saw the statistics shows Indonesia is much better than equality than Korea. Thank you.
Thank you. Please give applause to everyone and to our speakers. So thank you very much for everybody for participating this international seminar. And I think we have a little surprise for the students. I will give you 3 chocolates. Okay, so can you stand up in front of coklatnya ada berapa, Mas? Sudah ada 4? Ada 3 berarti saya harus pilih 3 ini. Kalau 3 nggak adil ini. Oke. Saya kira Prof Park, can you choose from the 4 students? Can you choose 3 students? You cannot. Okay. Okay. Ada satu lagi nggak coklatnya? Ada. Oke. Nanti aja ya, di belakang aja ya, dikasihnya ya. Okay. Please contact Mbak Vera to take your chocolate for students who raise the questions. And we have also certificate for Professor Park. Maybe you can stand up in front of the stage and officially representing the Dean, the Faculty of Law, I will give you the certificate.
One more thing, I have brought the pictures of BTS and pencils, and later you can distribute. I left in a car. Yeah, it's a picture of a bee. I don't know their names, but.
We also have certificates for our speakers. Bu Rina, terima kasih terlampir Ini adalah sertifikat online yang nanti akan dikirimkan versi digitalnya, mungkin melalui komunikasi kita. Dan juga kami ucapkan terima kasih, thank you very much for Pak Sony yang mungkin masih dalam rapat yang serius. Dan Pak Chris sepertinya ini sudah tengah malam di Amerika Serikat, tadi sudah pamit. Jadi terima kasih kepada semua speakers yang sudah hadir. Dan thank you very much everybody. But before we close, there will be lunch. But before we lunch, I think the moderator or the master of ceremony will ask you all to take pictures together in this stage. Okay? Silahkan Mbak Naila. Saya berikan kesempatan ke Mbak Naila selaku MC. Mari kita tutup dengan membaca hamdalah. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for all the speakers and also our moderator. Everyone, please give another applause to our moderator and also the speaker. And unfortunately, we are now have come to the end of the agenda. Thank you for all the speakers and moderator. I do apologize if there are any inconvenience. Thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And now, everyone, we have a photo session together in front of the stage. You may come.
Di belakang sebagian.